All right, members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening and welcome to the July 15th, 2026 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Jeffrey Haynes. I am the chair. I will now ask my fellow commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Jonathan Kaplan.
Michael Galway.
Mark Dominiani.
Sandra Prather.
Carly Bond.
Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff.
Laura DiPasquale, Historic Preservation Staff. Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
I'm Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening are the historic area work permits. Have the work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, Mr. Chair, they were advertised in the July 1st edition of the Washington Times.
Very good, thank you. If there's anyone here to testify for any of the cases, please give a speaker form to staff and they will let us know that you are here to address one of the cases. We're going to begin tonight by expediting the cases we believe can be expedited based on the staff reports. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to case 1A at 1811 Brighton Dam Road, Brookville? Case 1D at 708 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case 1E at 7408 Baltimore Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case 1F at 13 North Street, Brookville. Case 1G at 7001 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case 1H at 19010 Fisher Avenue, Poolsville. Case 1J at 10814 Kenilworth Avenue, Garrett Park. And case 1K at 4701 Waverly Avenue, Garrett Park.
Mr. Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with staff reports based upon the record before us, in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels and including the conditions recommended by staff. HOP number 1164740 at 1811 Brighton Dam Road, Brookville. HOP number 1159702 at 708 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1161290 at 7408 Baltimore Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1161430 at 13 North Street, Brookville. Retroactive HOP number 1161709 at 7001 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. HOP number 1162203 at 19010 Fisher Avenue, Poolsville. HOP number 1162483 at 10814 Kenilworth Avenue, Garrett Park. And HOP number 1143790 revision at 4701 Waverly Avenue, Garrett Park.
Is there a second?
This is
Commissioner
Commissioner
Kaplan.
Dominiani. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. So the motion passes unanimously. Those cases are all approved. If you have any questions, you can speak with staff tomorrow during regular business hours. And we certainly appreciate your work to preserve your properties and working with staff to submit easily approvable work permits. We have two HOP cases we will hear tonight. The first case will be at case 1B at 7417 Baltimore Avenue, Tacoma Park. This is a retroactive HOP. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Again, retroactive HOP for 7417 Baltimore Avenue in Tacoma Park. It's a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District, constructed circa 1923. This is to be reviewed under the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines, Chapter 24A of County Code, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and because this deals with solar panels, the HPC is also guided by its solar policy, which was adopted in 2020. So the applicant seeks approval for the installation of 24 solar panels installed in 5 total arrays on the subject house. So the solar company was responsible for obtaining all permits necessary for the installation. No HOP was filed for this. The solar company that installed the panels has since filed for bankruptcy and is no longer in business. However, the HPC is still required to review retroactive work as though it's only proposed. So what you see in the lower left is the house prior to 1995 when its second story was added. The HPC saw this a couple of years ago when a tree fell on the front of the house and damaged the porch substantially. Just walking around, you can see that they installed solar panels on 5 different roof slopes, none on the left, which faces north. And here you see this is from the southwest of the house. And you can see the arrangement on the left are the 2 one-story roof slopes, and then on the right are the 3 second-story roof slopes on the 1995 construction. So again, the HPC is guided by their solar policy. This identifies the preferred locations for solar panels, which include the rear of the property, non-historic building additions, accessory structures, in-ground mounted arrays. If it's not feasible to install on one of the identified preferred locations due to the resource orientation or other site limitations, and the HPC determines that the roof is neither architecturally significant nor a character-defining feature, then the public welfare is better served by approving the HOP. So staff finds that 15 panels were installed on the 2-story non-historic second floor addition, which is a preferred location. This is the case even for the 4 panels that face the front of the house on that second-story roof slope. And staff recommends that the HPC approve these panels. However, staff finds that the remaining 1-story hipped roof and porch are the only remaining characteristics of the prairie-style bungalow as constructed in 1923. Additionally, staff finds the panels on the south-facing roof slopes are in a disjointed arrangement, which is contrary to the guidance. Those are broken up into 2 different sections. And staff finds that the panels could be removed without permanently damaging any historic fabric. And to maintain the character of the house, staff recommends that the HPC add a condition to the HOP requiring the removal and potential relocation of the 9 panels installed on these roof slopes. With the added condition, staff recommends that the HPC approve the HOP under 24A8D, Standards 9 and 10, the design guidelines, and the HPC's solar policy. So again, the recommended condition is approval of this HOP does not extend to the solar panels installed on the 1-story portion of the house. Additional solar panels may be installed on the 2-story portion of the house to compensate for the removal of these panels, and approval of a revised solar panel layout showing this change is delegated to staff. And I will answer any questions that you have this time.
Do commissioners have questions for staff? It appears not. So we will have the applicants come up. I believe we have Ben Bregman. Please have a seat. And if you would push the button on the mic till it turns green and state your name for the record.
Ben Bregman.
Very good. And you can give a presentation or answer questions. I believe you'll have 7 minutes to speak.
I thought I had 5. Chairperson Haynes and members of the Historic Preservation Commission, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I am grateful for your commitment to preserving the memory, identity, and continuity of historic spaces. I am here today because I believe in the work you do and hope to contribute to your efforts to preserve the spirit and wellness of the physical communities where we dwell. Earlier this year, I hired Freedom Forever, then one of the nation's largest residential solar installers, to help me do my part in reducing my dependence on fossil fuels. Prior to hiring them, I inquired about their familiarity with historic area work permits, knowing about the process for my previous home repair. They assured me that every required permit would be obtained. With that promise, I paid for the system in full, and it was installed in late March. Within a month of installation, Freedom Forever declared bankruptcy, and all the work on my project ceased. After learning this, I contacted the county, engaged with staff, and picked up where Freedom Forever had left off. I discovered that they had not obtained the necessary permits to install the array, and that the documents they provided were illegally prepared. Additionally, I came to learn that the HOP had never been started. Tonight, as we suffer through the second heat dome of July, I'm here to rectify and to complete this part of the process by asking the Historic Preservation Commission to retroactively approve my HOP application for the full 24-panel solar array. What is specifically at issue is HPC staff's recommendation that I remove or relocate the 8 panels located on the lower roof as they are visible from the street. Assuming that the panels were correctly installed and functional, removing them would reduce the system's production by more than 1/3, require additional roofing work, generate unnecessary construction waste, and impose significant unequitable costs that cannot be recovered because the installer no longer exists. Relocating those panels would generate similar waste, cost, and inequity, and would not be technically practical because of the orientation of the remaining roof surfaces. Neither proposed option serves the greater good. I recognize that this commission cannot set aside its standards because an applicant has experienced hardship, but I respectfully believe that this case presents 4 unusual circumstances that would reasonably justify a variance that allows the 8 panels to remain. First, the installation was completed in good faith with every assurance that appropriate permitting would be obtained. Second, I have no recourse to recoup any loss as the company in question no longer exists. Third, the system is by its nature impermanent, and as such, it cannot have a permanent effect on the historic fabric of Tacoma Park. Finally, the system is installed and ready for permitting, inspection, and activation, and prematurely removing functional, renewable infrastructure would itself create unnecessary waste, consume additional resources, and reduce clean energy production, thereby adversely affecting the general public welfare. As such, I believe approving the HOP for the system as it currently exists is in agreement with the Historic Preservation Commission policy addressing emergency climate mobilization through the installation of roof-mounted solar panels, which expressly directs the Commission to balance the public interest in historic preservation against the public benefit of the proposed alternative. Specifically, in balancing the interest of the public in preserving the historic site or historic resources located within a historic district with the interest of the public from the use and benefit of the alternative proposal, the general public welfare is better served by granting the permit. Furthermore, on my bike ride into work this morning from my home to downtown Tacoma Park, I observed at least 2 houses that had objectively identical situations as my own, namely a clearly visible solar array located on a first-story roof that is visible from the street in a historic neighborhood. As this and the aforementioned is the case, I respectfully believe that my situation favors HOP approval. To the legitimate concerns about the visual impact of the lower panels, I plan to install solar skin or similar technology to reduce their visual impact. Beyond my own desire to improve the appearance of my house, other historic area preservation committees have set precedents by allowing solar projects to move forward when they commit to installation of this or similar technologies. Historic preservation is an act of faith that future generations will inherit a physical environment worth loving. Climate stewardship is an act of faith that future generations will inherit a world in which those places can continue to exist. I do not believe those responsibilities compete with one another. I believe they can complete one another. I respectfully ask that you allow these 8 panels to remain and my HOP to be retroactively approved, as it is in alignment with Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission policy, is an equitable and fair ruling under unusual circumstances, and so that together we may preserve not only the beauty of Tacoma Park, but the future in which that beauty can continue to be appreciated. Thank you for your time and for your service to our community.
Thank you. At this time, are there questions for the applicant? Commissioner Prather.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Prather.
Hi.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. The first of which is the 1/3 reduction of energy. Can you cite your source?
So the panels as they're arranged, 4 of them are on the east and west upper level of the house, and I believe 9 of them, I think I'm doing my math incorrectly, are located on the second story of the house. So, and on the lower part of the house, I think 3 or 4 are installed. 3 are installed on the west front, and 5 are installed on the south front. The south front is the most productive solar-wise of all of the solar panels in general. And given the fact that we have a tree somewhat abutting, I've asked the tree people to remove part of it. It's a pear tree, and so it's one of those trees that has a tendency for stuff to fall off. I've asked them to trim it back, but it's still too tall to really let the sun in. And because the 5 panels are on the south face that will generate the most electricity, on balance, just by the numbers, at least 33% will be removed as a result of removing those 8 panels on the bottom. And 5 of the 14 most productive panels will be removed. And that is a little bit more than a third.
Thank you for your response. As a follow-up question, did a solar subject matter expert evaluate the impact of moving the 8 panels to another location of the roof?
I was informed of the decision by Dan last week or recently, and I did not have the time to have an assessor come. I have scheduled several phone calls with solar companies currently that are trying to take over. None of them want to touch this project. So Freedom Forever, have you been following this in the news?
I am familiar with the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thousands of Americans have been defrauded by them. And I am certainly not the first, nor will I be the last to come to a commission like this. But I've done my best, my due diligence, to find other people to rearrange, move, talk about it. Nobody has been willing to come yet because I don't have any approval to even look at it, to even touch it. And if I may say, I don't even know if the thing works. And I need to have approval to get the permit, to get the assessment, before I can even know if like it makes sense to hire another company to redo everything.
So I want to thank you for your response, and I am deeply moved by all of what you've gone through to make amends and try to correct the actions that were deficient. So
I appreciate you. Thank you very
I really
much.
empathize with you.
Commissioner Galway.
And this is Commissioner Galway, just to confirm, and I'm not sure it matters, but on the diagram we're looking at here, on your 1923 bungalow, it looks like there's 5 showing up and 4. Is it 8 panels or 9 panels, just to be clear?
To be honest, I haven't been able to really fully assess. On the lower roof, there are 8. I can see that.
Okay.
But the upper roof, I hope, I hope there are 16. I can clearly see, I think 3 on the back. When I go to the back, the front is a little bit more difficult to see from the angle of the ground. And the south side, the one with the most solar panels, I think has an extra panel placed on top that shouldn't have been there before, that wasn't a part of the original plan. I could be wrong about that. I have pictures. I have lots of pictures, but I didn't know that I could do a PowerPoint, and I
Just
figured
curious.
that I shouldn't waste your time.
All right, thank you. And then as a
Thank you for your
follow-up
question. Go ahead.
follow-up question, first of all, how unfortunate that a company called Freedom Forever goes bankrupt. It's sort of a little uncanny, huh?
Yeah, this is, indignity
You
forever.
mentioned in your little opening statement, and it sounded like they were working and then one day they weren't, and you're not convinced that you don't know whether the system works or not. Did you have to hire someone else to come in to complete any of the work, or was it they finished what they finished with under the assumption that it was? Did you assume it was done and then they left and of course filed bankruptcy, or talk to me about the timeline?
I will tell the whole story if you're willing to listen.
I
I'm
just
grateful.
the abridged.
I have close personal relationship with the a person who installs solar panels. I approached him in February to ask about which company I should go with. He said Freedom Forever is, I think, the top one or two, or was the top one or two installer in the country. I went with them, and I met with their person, their salesperson, and I went over everything that would go into making the system, and I mentioned to them, we're in a historic area, does that matter? We'll cover it. We'll figure it out. White glove service to you, we're gonna make it happen. So everything happened as it was supposed to. There was, at least to my understanding, initial permitting was done. It was not. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the
Yeah,
actual
I've read through
permitting
the-
forms.
yeah.
They cut and pasted from other people's stamps, and they didn't even complete the forms.
But you, let me, cut-
And they
let me cut-
installed- go
But
ahead.
as far as you knew, when they were done, they were complete? I mean, in other words, they didn't go bankrupt before they completed your work?
No,
Okay,
no. And,
okay.
so they scheduled it. My installer was confused about how early it was. It was supposed to be in April. It was like the end of March. I think it was the March the 21st or March the 28th. And they were installed, they were put up. It took less than a day. It looked great. It was done. Didn't look great because they're, you know, something needs to cover them to make them look a little bit better, but it was fine. And then I was waiting for permission to turn on the PTO, and they have a website where they tell you where they are in terms of their process. And every couple of days I checked, and I checked with the installer, everything is coming along. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a month to go from installation to PTO. Great. Month goes by, 6 weeks go by, I reach out to the installer. He's on a work trip to Nepal to install solar panels in Nepal. He gets back, I look on the website, something weird happens, I call them up, we have gone bankrupt. I look online, and not only have they gone bankrupt, but tons of people have been defrauded. I've spoken to the installer, who somehow is still on their inner circle, and has found out that the owner of the company absconded from the United States, escaped. Their son sold a house, a multi-million-dollar house, and also left the country. Like, this is a story of not. I thought I did my due diligence.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have one, and it is certainly frustrating to be in the situation that you are, and
I appreciate that.
the company that you feel is reputable turns out not to be. I would ask a question about the process. Did they show you a plan like what's on the screen prior to your agreeing to to proceeding with the installation? I mean, did you know where the panels were going to go before they started the work?
They made the proposal, and they said, this is where we would like to put the panels. And I said, did you get permitting? And they said, of course. We are a reputable company. And I said, I'm in a historic district, does that matter? And they say, we're going to make sure that it works. I should probably have known better that it happened so quickly, knowing that it takes time for hops to go through. I did not. I made a faulty assumption, but yeah.
Thank you. Any other further question for the applicant? If not, then I would welcome any commentary, discussion. And I will start that conversation. While we, as I mentioned, appreciate the predicament that you're in, there are solar panel guidelines, and so we, as a homeowner, you have to be aware of them. You have to look at the proposal and apply those guidelines to what you're looking at and understand it. So I think in your case, for me, the most egregious panels are on the very front slope. The three panels facing the street are, for me, the most bothersome. I would look to see if they could be moved. I'd be willing to say, grant you twice as many if you could put them on the north face of that lower roof line, on the lower historic roof line, and clean up at least the front hip face of the roof. As for the south, I believe it's the south. We need to put north arrows on our site plans going forward.
North is up on the image. but-
Yeah, I got that, but, and then ideally, we'd get rid of all the panels on the lower end, but I get that south-facing is kind of primary energy efficient side. So I would welcome other commissioners' thoughts about cleaning up the front face, maybe negotiating for additional panels that would be in a location less visible from the sidewalks and streetscape. Commissioner Prather.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Prather. I agree with Chair Haynes that there could be some positioning, some gains, and that a subject matter expert should be engaged to respect the historic nature of the house and also meaningfully add the panels that is less disruptive to the character of the community.
Commissioner Galway.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Galway. Yeah, I think this is a situation where the discussion certainly goes beyond just having a product that's reversible. You know, we have an obligation to the guidelines, to those who live in the areas that have the guidelines, to, you know, I think as Commissioner Prather said, to respect the historic character of the building. And I think have to disagree a little bit with Chair about just on the one face or the other. When I look at the image, figure 3, I have a hard time parsing out and saying, well, maybe the one south face would be okay and the west is not. I mean, it's just, it's hard to imagine thinking anything other than it's just unattractive. And I think there's a couple things, unfortunately, that are going against you, and that is the blackness or the black panels on the very light colored roof. And I think that makes it really tough to look at that and say that in any way that cannot, under any circumstance, be considered improving or enhancing or not taking away from the historic character of the bungalow style. So I guess from my perspective, if there's any way you could relocate those panels from those two faces, that west, the lower, your bungalow, your south face and your west face, and look at if there's any opportunity to put them elsewhere on the upper roof. I think it's something that I would feel strongly about. Thank you.
Commissioner Dominiani.
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I'm surprising myself by taking, I think, maybe a different matter of opinion from some of the other commissioners. I think that this is a difficult situation where the applicant trusted a contractor or made more of an honest mistake. We sometimes see retroactive cases where someone knowingly went around the HOP process, for example, and then is coming in kind of saying sorry afterwards. This is a trickier situation. Obviously, my preference would be for these panels to be on the upper 1995 addition roof, even if it is north-facing, where it's not going to get as much irradiance or have as much solar access. However, I wonder if there is a way in this case to grant some leniency to this applicant and perhaps if we could add a condition to potential approval that when it is time for the roof to be replaced or when these solar panels have reached the end of their sort of functional lifespan, I'm not sure how long that is, whether these panels are built to last for 5, 10, or 50 years. I think that might play into it, but we would then sort of mandate that they couldn't be replaced over the historic structure on the left side of the diagram as shown, panel array 4 and 5. Yeah, I just feel sympathy, and I think that it is like a costly burden to force these to be removed, relocated, and possibly disposed of, especially when the applicant is kind of trapped in a permitting bind where other solar subject matter experts might not want to come and touch a project that has not been approved properly from the get-go. It's sort of a cycle that he's trapped within, it seems to me. So I'm surprising myself by advocating perhaps leniency in this case.
Other thoughts? Commissioner Kaplan.
Hi. Yeah, I have a really hard time being part of a process that is making you suffer these consequences. And, you know, I'm thinking about the idea of taking the panels off of one of these elevations and not the other. But I think just because it's on that corner, I just can't see that. And, you know, we always want to take into account the people who live in these places and what the circumstances are. I think the effect on the property has to take precedence, and I just don't see how approving something that is counter to very clear guidelines. And then I would also be concerned going forward, you know, the precedent, because then other people will see, you know, this and wonder why, you know, why they can't have that on their own homes. So, yeah, I would just have a hard time, you know, revising the approval.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me speak a little bit. Commissioner Dominiani. I had included actually a provision, exactly what you stated in a previous document, and I excluded it from my spoken statement because I wanted to save time, and I thought I only had 5 minutes. But I'm happy to write a legally binding contract for me and make sure that that is a part of whatever sales document if we were to sell the house before whatever mutually agreed upon timeline that would look like. I think there's also, I mentioned the solar skin, and I think a lot of, there's been an articulation of sort of the color as being a problem. And there's a way to, a precedent has been set in other historic preservation commissions to allow such projects to move forward if they're covered in a way that neither impairs the solar production nor affects the visual appearance. And I'm aware of the fact that it is a visual discomfort. And I would like to rectify that on my own, and I've already reached out to a solar skin company to give me a quote to be able to provide coverage for that. Finally, two other things. One is, I think we are now living in an era where this is a necessity, and then sort of the new aesthetic in some ways is these solar panels. Throughout Tacoma Park, the historic district, I mentioned a house on the corner of Maple and Tulip. There's a house that has literally the exact same pitch of the roof on Holly, right near the corner of Philadelphia. And I can show you pictures of these where there are solar panels. And you and I have lived through environmental disasters.
Can I interrupt? Sorry to interrupt. I think it's clear we're not opposed to solar panels. That's why we've made regulation to homeowners to provide panels, and we're well aware of the natural disasters that are coming due to climate change. So we're not opposed to it. But at the same time, our goal here, our mission as a Historic Preservation Commission is to maintain the quality of homes, quality of neighborhoods, quality of streetscapes. And so you talked about a skin. Well, one, we can't evaluate that. We don't know what that is. I'm highly skeptical of that. I think the way forward here today is we either devise a solution, a compromise solution that can move you forward. So my initial comment was to get the panels off the west face, the street face, I forget which street that is, and perhaps live with the south face, that is the lower, we're talking about the lower roof, historic roof, as a potential. And it does look like on the upper roof, on the east side, you could add another panel, because you've got 4 on the upper west face. You could get 4 on the east face. So now you're only down 2 panels to relocate. And perhaps you could then, we'd be willing to do, 6 panels on the upper north face, because you got to compensate for the inefficiency of the north face. So that's what I would suggest we do in order to move this forward. Is that something you could live with?
Boy, am I grateful for your flexibility on this. Certainly, I could live with it. I would propose that I get the solar skin to talk to somebody and maybe get a subject matter expert to weigh in on that. And just rather than us having to make a decision immediately, to really be able to do our due diligence, perhaps with the final, if you guys decide against the solar skin and it's not viable, that I will gladly accept your compromise.
Okay, so it sounds like you're willing to defer the case until you can come back with an example of the solar skin and some information for us. Is that correct? We won't rule on anything tonight. We'll just defer your case till you come back with more information.
I am happy to take whatever recommendations that you guys make, and I will be deferential. I would prefer to leave it as intact as possible, but if this is the decision of the commission, then I will accept it.
Let's hear from Commissioner Prather.
This is Commissioner Prather. I would encourage and really highly recommend that not just you, but any professional you're going to engage fully understand our solar policy and respect to historic homes. There is written guidance, and the solar skin is a rather late coming technology. The policy was established in 2020. So again, if you haven't well-versed yourself in that policy, that would be something that I would encourage you to do. Anytime there is a solar case put before us, that's one thing I do is refresh myself from porches and solar and all that. I refresh and look at the guidelines first so that I'm better equipped to serve and to support. I do highly recommend that we give you time to come up to speed and fully understand the use case of the solar skin, or whatever a contractor can better advise the movement of the 8 panels and come up with something unique. There are probably a few contractors out there that would at least look at the schematic, and they may not want to touch it, but they could respect the historic district and make some amendments and some suggestions.
In order to move forward in any way, I need to have the blessing of this committee that then goes to the Department of Permitting. Otherwise, at least the 4 different installers that I have reached out to have all sort of, this is a hot potato no one wants to touch. And so
We understand,
yeah.
but you're proposing an alternate solution that you're asking us to consider, and we don't know what that is. We don't fully, so,
I don't know what to ask either.
yeah, so I'm suggesting that we defer the case. It means we're not going to vote on it tonight, and you'll have to, get the information, bring an expert in at another hop, and then we would look at that and consider it. Now, the results might be the same. We're not saying yes or no. We're simply deferring to allow you to get this alternate solution together and present it.
This is Rebecca Ballo for the record. I mean, yes, that's absolutely something the commission can do. And, from the staff's perspective, we've never evaluated a proposal with a solar panel skin before. We haven't seen one in the field. So I don't know, Mr. Bregman, if you've seen one in the field either, if that's something you would be happy with or not happy with, but we would love the opportunity, if that is a potential solution, to work with the applicant to get as much information as possible to bring back to the commission. So you all could just make a motion to defer. In terms of meetings, we've already advertised for the July 29th meeting. The next available meeting is the August 19th one, which is scheduled to be your virtual meeting. And then after that, we have the September 9th meeting. So perhaps the August meeting. I mean, this isn't, for the solar panels, we never bring those in physically anyways, the same that we do with other building materials. So I don't necessarily think, the commission may think otherwise, that you guys would have to have that meeting in person. But it also depends on the availability of Mr. Bregman as well, if you are available on August 19th.
I am not, unfortunately, and
Okay.
I'm trying to debate, what is the best interest. I think delaying solar production, delaying joule production, kilowatts going into the system versus having to, there's a very reasonable compromise that you have offered, and removing 2 faces, generating all that, like the waste from the panels versus 1 face, and potentially trying to make it a little bit more contained in terms of a cleanup project. I think rather than deferring this for months, I think September would be the earliest that I could do. And you said September the what?
August 19th is the next available one, and then September the 9th.
It's right around Rosh Hashanah, and I will
It
probably
is.
not be, so probably not be until October. And I think deferring this for several months just does not make sense.
I have a question for staff. Is it possible or make sense to approve the upper roof panels and defer the lower? And Mr. Bergman, does that help you in terms of collecting additional information?
No idea.
I don't, Mr. Chair. I appreciate where you're coming from in the commission too, trying to sort of split the baby with that, but it is all under one building permit application.
Okay.
So I would advise keeping it as one application.
Okay, so then sounds like you have 2 choices. You can either defer and get the solar cover information, come back on September, or we come to an agreement here, somehow compromise here. Which way would you like to proceed?
I think I'm going to accept good enough, and I will accept a compromise if available.
Okay, and so precisely what that is, so Commissioner Galway, your thoughts about moving panels
Let me just make sure I understand what's being considered here, and that would be to retain the 5 panels on the south face of the bungalow and relocate the 4 panels?
Well, that's the question. My initial proposal was to remove and relocate the west face, the 3 west face. There was some pushback on that, and the ideal preference is to relocate all the lower panels to either the upper roof, or probably even better if we could get them off the south side and get them on the north side. Understand it's not as efficient, but perhaps there's a balance between that. Ideally, we clean up the west and the south side.
Yeah, I would support that. If there was a motion to keep one on, let's say, on the south side and eliminate on the west side, I would not be in favor of that.
If we could take one and put it up on the east side, which is a high sun radiance
The
area.
schematic may not be accurate.
Well, then,
We
we have to trust the information, or this is not gonna go.
We can always, again, I'm sorry to interrupt, Rebecca Ballo, for the record, if, in reviewing the building permit, if other things need to be like tweaked or moved with the panels, again, the best you have is the information that you have, and it's the best that the applicant has been, able to present to us right now. I recommend this is what we can proceed with. If you have to tweak the permit or we have to do another revision at a future time, we can also do that as well. And you can also do that with your building permit. What I might, recommend, if I may, one good way to start is a motion, see if you get a second, and then discuss the motion from there. And if the motion fails, try again with another motion.
Sure, thank you for the guidance. I will make a motion. I move that we approve hop number 116068 at 7417 Baltimore Avenue, based on the staff report, but with the following conditions: that we remove all the 3 panels on the west face, and it gets relocated to the upper or north face of the lower or upper roof, north side. That we remove at least 1 panel on the south side and move it to the upper east face of the roof, thereby making at least the south face symmetrical about the roof and a bit more palatable. Do I have a second? Discussion.
Is there a second? Then the motion fails. We'll need another motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Prather.
This is Commissioner Prather. I make a motion that the applicant work with whoever the subject matter expert is to relocate the 8 panels that are incongruent with the solar panel policy per the Historic Preservation Commission. I defer to the applicant to give him more time and more due diligence to come back and propose, whether it's the solar skin or whatever, but something that aligns with our historic preservation solar policy.
To clarify, I'm sorry, so that's a recommendation for a deferral, for a date TBD.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion.
Okay.
All in favor, we'll take a roll call starting on my left. Yay, you support the deferral. Nay, you do not support the deferral.
Yeah, I would support a deferral if that's what the applicant wanted.
A nay.
Yay.
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 Nay.
Motion carries 4-2.
So we are deferring your case to allow you to get more information and re-present at your next available meeting time. So we appreciate your coming in and the difficult situation that you're in, but clearly we feel there's more investigation to be done, and we'd like to give you the time to do that. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to our second hop is 1I at 7220 Spruce Avenue, Tacoma Park. Do we have a staff report?
We do. 1 minute, Mr. Chair. We'll get that set up. This is Laura DiPasquale with the staff. This is a review of HOP 1161903 for solar panel installation at 7220 Spruce Avenue, Tacoma Park. The subject property is a contributing resource in the Tacoma Park Historic District. The circa 1920s bungalow originally had a low-pitch hipped roof, which was modified with the construction of a second-story cross-gable roofed addition approved by the HPC in 2004. The project is subject to review under the Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines, Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation, and the HPC's Policy 2001 addressing emergency climate mobilization through the installation of roof-mounted solar panels. Here's a view of the historic house at the time, around the time of designation, and present day with the construction of the 2004 addition. The applicants propose to install 17 roof-mounted solar panels in 2 arrays, including 11 panels on the street-facing front roof slope and 6 panels on the northeast rear roof slope of the 2004 addition. The load center and disconnect switch are proposed adjacent to the existing utility meter on the right side elevation, or northeast. An additional view showing the visibility of the front roof slope from the street and limited to no visibility of the rear roof slopes. Staff evaluated the proposed placement of the solar panels on the subject property against the guidance provided in HPC Policy 2001. In determining the most appropriate placement for solar panels, the policy and associated technical guidance outlines several preferred locations, including in ground-mounted arrays, on accessory structures, on non-historic additions, and lastly, on the historic building itself. The approved and adopted policy guidance for solar technology also states that schemes for traditional roof-mounted arrays on non-historic additions, the solar systems should be located on secondary elevations of non-historic additions to minimize visibility from public rights-of-way. The installation of solar system on the primary elevations of non-historic additions will be preferred over installation on the historic section of the resource. For this project, the installation of panels in a ground-mounted array is not possible for this project owing to the lot size and canopy cover. The justification provided by the applicants explains that the installation of panels on the southwest-facing plane of the rear addition and on the rear accessory structure are not ideal owing to the presence of overhanging trees, which you can see somewhat in the heat map here. The applicants propose installation of panels on the 3rd preferred location, the non-historic addition. In keeping with guidance under preference number 3, the 6 panels on the rear non-historic rear addition are in keeping with the policy, and there are also the 11 panels on the highly visible front elevation of the non-historic addition. Staff finds that although all of the panels are proposed in a preferred location on a non-historic addition, owing to the high visibility of the panels, the front panels should be symmetrically laid out and aligned so as to reduce their conspicuousness and not detract from the character of the historic bungalow below, per standard to Chapter 24A 8B6 and Policy 2001. The applicant has noted in correspondence that symmetry does not appear in the HPC's policy guidance, which instead states that the panels should be arranged in an organized configuration. Staff finds that the 2 to 3 inch offset of the 2 vertically oriented panels, along with the misaligned seam and off-center placement on the roof with unequal amounts of roofing to either side of the proposed array, will appear disorganized on the highly visible front roof elevation and draw attention to the panels over the symmetrically designed bungalow below. Staff finds that a more organized appearance could be achieved by installing the panels all in the same orientation and centering them to the greatest extent possible, either 10 panels organized vertically in 5 rows of 2, or 9 panels horizontally in 3 rows of 3, and eliminating 2 vertically oriented panels would be a more symmetrical and organized design. Staff finds that the panels that are not visible from the public right-of-way are appropriate and consistent with Policy 2001, as they do not detract from the character-defining features of the property. Staff notes that any additional panels that could be feasibly installed on a non-street-facing roof plane would likewise not substantially alter the exterior features of the resource and be approvable at the staff level. So staff has recommended that the HPC approve with one condition the HOP application with final approval authority delegated to staff. The panel layout on the front roof must be symmetrically oriented and positioned. The applicant must submit revised plans showing the panels reoriented, which may result in the net loss of 1 to 2 panels, which may be relocated to the rear if possible. Happy to answer any questions you might have for staff.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Appears not, so we will have the applicant come up. I believe we have Elizabeth Sandin. And if you would make sure the mic is turned on to green and state your name for the record.
Hi, good afternoon, evening, I guess. My name is Elizabeth Sandin. I've been a Montgomery County resident for my entire life, and we've been homeowners at 7220 since 1998. I appreciate your taking the time to talk with me, as your staff has been incredibly valuable, and the time allotted to this has been really very impressive. I won't take up too much of your time. I think as the staff indicated, there isn't a requirement that in the guidelines that the panels be symmetrical, only that they be organized. And I think that, and as staff quite clearly indicated, it is not an historic roof. And we are very grateful for that because we've really enjoyed our addition since 2005. But the HPC did require the retention of that dormer that you see in front of you. And we also note that even though the staff report indicates that symmetry would be the staff report indicates that the symmetry is preferred because the house is symmetrical, but you can see quite clearly that the house is not symmetrical. The very large chimney to the left, I don't do east and west, makes it not symmetrical, and the alignment of the 2 vertical panels sort of balances that unequal massing of the chimney and the rest of the roof. In addition, that historic dormer serves to block some of the visual impact of the solar panels from a head-on view. But more importantly than that, the reason for having the panels be located there on that slope of the roof is the solar experts indicated that is the area of the roof that most highly generates electricity, which is really kind of the whole point of the shebangle, if one can use technical terms in front of you. And so moving even one of them to the less effective generation on the grounds of a non-existent requirement regarding symmetry seems like a bizarrely wasted opportunity to me. Solar panels are ugly. I'll give you that. They're not a beautiful creature, but I think the point of them, as you stated in the previous approval or application, is to make solar energy. And to do that the most efficient way possible, I think, is the goal. I also note, and this may be out of order, and if it is, I apologize, but Tacoma Park actually issued guidelines regarding creating a sustainable environment that were established in 1999, 21 years before the Montgomery County's guidelines on solar, an adult human being's lifetime before that. And that guides you towards using solar power to the fullest extent possible. And I would argue that to the fullest extent possible, read in conjunction with the Montgomery County guidance, should be read to include the optimization of the areas where solar is produced. And that's why I'm asking for some consideration of that Tacoma Park guideline. And if you're using it in addressing it using the standard the standard for issuance of these permits, which is lenience. And if you are to look at the guidance that is provided, the applicable guidance that's supplied to you from the governing historic district, apply that along with the requirement or the guidance that the panels be organized, which they are. I think when you will be flying past it in a car or a bicycle, what you're going to essentially see is a rectangle, which I think is organized, and it uses the area of the roof that maximizes the production. And so I think using the leniency standard, I would respectfully request that the permit be approved as submitted.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions for the applicant? I have one. On the heat map that's shown here in the upper right of the screen, it appears that the front, I don't know what orientation this is. North is up.
North is up.
So that means the front is east?
Southeast.
Southeast?
Southeast.
But according to this heat map, the southeast face, and I guess that's the northwest face where you have the 6 panels.
Yeah.
The heat index looks very similar. Is that true?
According to the report that was provided with the to the commission, there is a difference of a couple of hundred kilowatts per hour. And it's in there somewhere. Math is, I'm not going to lie, not my strong suit.
I believe those front-facing panels facing southeast
Yeah,
generate 455 kilowatt hours per panel, whereas those 6, I just read this in the report somewhere, and I wrote it in my notebook, but I don't know, I can't find it in the report again. Oh, yeah, here we go. And those 6 panels on the northeast-facing dormer generate 336
Yep.
kilowatt hours per panel, meaning that the difference between the two of them is about 119, by my math in my head.
yeah.
Gotcha. Very good.
A little less than a third.
Well, if there are no more questions for the applicant, then I'm going to open up to discussion. So we appreciate your goal to maximize the panels. We're not against that. We're, as we said in the last case, we're here to balance the preservation of historic neighborhood, streetscapes, homes, and integrate latest technology. It seems like we're very close. It seems like if you could take 2 panels and put them to the northeast, there'd be, yes, some loss. Maybe you could get 3 panels back there and have a set of 9 back there, and that would give you plenty of room to balance the front arrays. Have you considered that? Can you ask your solar experts?
We can
how that-
certainly ask, I just don't, I guess
So that front face
Yeah.
is like, because of the pitch, because of the height, is very visible from the street, whether you're walking, riding a bike, or driving 50 miles an hour. Hopefully not.
I hope not.
So
Speed
we're
humps.
simply asking to compose, so you have a beautiful house, and you continue to have a beautiful house, that we're not opposed to the dark rectangle on the house, but that is almost like a movie screen. It's that tall, it's that prominent. That roof face is very
Yes.
prominent. So we're simply asking to organize it in a way that complements the house by balancing it out on the front gable. And it seems like we're close. If it's at least looking at the diagram as drawn, it seems like we're maybe, 1.5 feet off in one direction. So if we could relocate 2 panels, we could easily get it balanced and meet all this, the fireman circulation around the panels, and there'd be minimal sacrifice to the energy.
I mean, if you're talking about centering the full 11 panels closer to the chimney, I believe that there's room to do that. But it's not clear to me why it's necessary to remove the 2 panels that are oriented differently.
Well, if you can do it, if we're recommending moving because we don't think you can do that, and maintain, you have to maintain 3 feet, if we go back to that roof plan. No, not that one.
There's a roof
That
plan
one.
that shows the setback from,
Yeah, so that red hashing there, I take it to be the required access, and so we can't encroach, the panels can't encroach into that. I believe it's a 3-foot wide access for the roof for servicemen, firemen, et cetera. So that's the issue as to why we technically can't move it over there, because you'll encroach in that access way. But if we can take 2 panels and 2 panels closest to the red access zone and locate them to the back, you might be able to get 3 of those panels back there, and you'd be up a panel, and you'd have the equal amount of energy. Why is that a problem?
I don't think we can fit 3. But I'm certainly happy to talk with them about it. I don't think it would be possible to make that array of 6 into an array of 9 or 8. Maybe 7, but I still don't, I mean, you're going to do what you're going to do. I don't, I still fundamentally don't get why it doesn't look like a rectangle, because it looks like a rectangle to me.
Yeah, it looks like a rectangle off to the side of your house.
Which balances the big chimney, which is sitting there unbalanced.
Any other thoughts from commissioners. Commissioner Galway.
Yes, Commissioner Galway. First of all, I want to say that the addition that was done, I guess, in 2005 really complements the bungalow. It's very rare that you see an addition that just does such a nice job of just bringing that, you know, when you look at the house before the addition and you look at it after, I actually think, man, I think it's as attractive now as it was before the addition. So that, you know, kudos to the previous owner. I don't think that was.
It was me.
Was you? Okay, I'll give
And
you-
can I add,
Yeah.
in fact, that one of the other aspect of that is that it actually maintains that chimney leads to an historic original 1915 fireplace.
Very cool.
Which was not going to be retained with some of the options that were provided by the HPC. And so it's not, not only looks great from the outside, it looks even better from the inside. So.
Oh, that's good. Congratulations. I think that the fortunate situation for you as the homeowner and the locations of the panels on the upper roof is it is not part of the historic structure. But we could also, you know, and I know you're stressed out and confused about the whole thing, about the orientation, but I really think this is a situation of compromise more than anything else, and I'll explain why. You could argue with the solar guidelines that even though it is an addition, it is a prominent addition, at least that roof surface, and having, you know, agreeing to put some panels up there, at least have the commission agreed that some panels can go up there in a more balanced arrangement is certainly a better option than us sitting here and saying you can't have any of the panels. So I think that please keep that in mind as we kind of go through this. Chair Haynes, you know, commented about the symmetry, and yet and looking at it, certainly those two panels that are on the left in the red, or next to the red walking area there, I have to agree that if you could relocate one or possibly two to that backside. I'm a professional engineer, and so I have just as much interest in solar energy and saving the world and as I do the historic aspects of the house or the home. But when I look at the watts per square foot, the 11 panels are about 41 watts a square foot. The 6 panels are 56 watts a square foot. So that's based on the orientation, I guess the southeast versus the northwest. The difference in the panel output is roughly about 15 watts a square foot. If you compare that to 1,500 watts for a hairdryer, and we're talking about the difference per square foot of panel of 15 watts, we're really not talking about a huge difference. And I know you're trying to get every single watt you can out of it, but at the end of the day, it's more important if you could find a spot for those panels, and the difference is, I won't say it's negligible, but it's pretty darn small. So, you know, and I do think, I look at the photograph that's up on the screen now and trying to envision having a black surface on that back roof, and there's no question in my mind that having a small sliver of your roof on the right-hand side and a much larger sliver of your roof showing up between the chimney and the panels on the left, it would not be balanced. And I do think that kind of positioning that equally from left to right, at least from the chimney to the edge of the roof, I think it does make more sense. So that's my comments. Thanks.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Dominiani.
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I just wanted to acknowledge that the applicants in their written testimony brought up something that I asked the staff about earlier, which is the desire for symmetry in contrast to what is laid out in the policy guidance, that the array ought to be organized. And I tend to agree with the applicant that the array as presented is organized. Sometimes we see arrays that look a bit more like a checkerboard as the panels sort of dodge around various vents and other things protruding from roofs. So I would acknowledge that this is that difference between the written policy and then sort of our interpretation as it is now. And to me, it is presented in compliance with the policy as it's written. We have a desire, I think, aesthetically to push for symmetry because of the prominence of this roof slope, even though it is non-historic, but I think that the application as shown to me at least is in compliance with the policy as I understand it. And while my preference might be to orient this array of panels kind of with like matching symmetry on left and right in terms of setback from the edge of the roof, I'm not sure, that would be like, I guess, an aesthetic preference of mine, and I'm not sure if it's grounded necessarily in policy. Yeah, so I think I'm just acknowledging that conundrum I have when confronting this case, yeah, and wondering perhaps if we need to consider in the reports or in our evaluation whether the word symmetry should be used rather than organized as it's written. Yeah.
Thank you, and that's consideration we can certainly take up at a later date. If there are no more, oh, Commissioner Kaplan.
Yeah, as you point out, this is a non-original portion of the house, but because it is so prominent, it's still, the house is still, as a whole, a historic resource, heritage resource. And so I feel like kind of a symmetrical array would be appropriate to a symmetrical house. And you were pointing out the Silver Spring, whatever, solar policy, talking about, wanting to maximize, the greatest extent possible with the solar. But the Historic Preservation Commission policy addressing installation of roof-mounted solar panels is saying greatest extent possible, taking the heritage resource into account. Because it's, and there's the language in there is saying you can't just to the greatest extent possible. There are things that you shouldn't do, and so I think that this falls under that because it is so prominent. At first I was thinking too that it's kind of an aesthetic matter, which we don't like to delve into, but I do see that it's actually a matter of compatibility with the house. So I would agree with staff.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, I'm going to make a motion that the Historic Preservation Commission approve HOP number 1161903 at 7220 Spruce Avenue, Tacoma Park, based on the staff report with the condition that the panel layout on the front roof be symmetrically oriented and positioned, and that the applicant must submit a revised plan showing the panels reoriented to the staff, who can grant final approval upon that submission. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Kaplan, second.
We'll take a roll call starting on my left. Yay is in support of the recommendation. Yay is non-support.
Yay.
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 Abstain.
Yay.
Yay.
So this motion passes 4 yays, 5 yays, and 1 abstention. We thank you for coming in and appreciate your efforts to preserve your house and preserve the world. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our preliminary consultations. First case is 2A at 8 Oxford Street, Chevy Chase. Do we have a staff report?
Yep, just one moment, Mr. Chair. All right, this is a preliminary consultation for 2A at 8 Oxford Street and Chevy Chase. So this is an outstanding resource to the Chevy Chase Village Historic District. The house was constructed in circa 1911 with a side projecting garage constructed about 1988, and there was a swimming pool installed sometime between 1987 and 1993 based on staff's review of the permit records. So all of the changes to the buildings are supposed to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Chevy Chase Village Design Guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior standards. So the applicant proposes a number of items. Their proposal is to substantially alter the garage, partially demolish it, construct a loggia and modify the existing breezeway, construct a rear addition, demolish the swimming pool and its associated hardscaping, and then construct a new accessory structure in the rear of the property. So again, if you haven't, just familiarize yourself with the property real quickly. Here's the breezeway that connects the house to the garage, the existing garage. And then photos of the rear of the swimming pool and hardscaping, and the rear elevation of the house. So again, on the left, you see the existing site plan, and the right is proposed. We'll note that there's a small swimming pool just shown as a rectangle in the upper left corner there. More information is going to be needed about that before staff can provide substantive comments. But you can see on the right, all of the gray is new construction or alterations to the existing construction. So the largest change from staff's perspective that's visible from the right-of-way is removing the roof of the garage and installing a more steeply pitched roof with a number of dormers. You can see that there are changes to the breezeway. They're expanding the garage openings to go from a single roll-up door to 2 carriage-style doors. And there are substantial changes going on elsewhere. You can see, again, they're demolishing approximately 2/3 of the garage. Much of that is to the rear, which isn't readily visible from the public right-of-way. And then on the side, you see they're installing one large dormer and additional window openings. And then the rear elevation. And they're proposing to construct a rear addition and then a loggia that connects the house to the garage, which you can see highly glazed here. So again, that loggia contains a series of skylights. It will connect from the house to the rear of the garage. And then we have a small addition proposed for the rear. It's inset at both corners. And the ridge of the hipped roof is kept lower than the existing hip. In the right elevation, you can see the addition in the right there. So, and then there's a small accessory structure that's highly glazed on 3 of the elevations. Its design is relatively consistent with the proposed loggia. So staff finds that as the garage was constructed in the late 1980s, removing the existing roof in the rear 2/3 will not impact any historic fabric or the historic character of the resource. The raised garage roof will be approximately 3 inches taller than the current configuration, and that most of the garage expansion will not be visible from the public right-of-way. Identified materials, which include stucco, Spanish slate, sapele siding, are appropriate with the character of the site. And staff finds that the revised breezeway opening, which is larger, and new door will not substantially impact the character of the house, and it appears to be appropriate. Staff finds that the proposed garage alterations will also not obscure any of the house's historic features. So staff finds that the highly glazed loggia will not be at all visible from the public right-of-way, and finds that the proposed rear addition is inset from the historic wall planes and its roof is lower, preserving the historic house's primacy, and that the materials identified, again, are also compatible with the character of the house. Staff finds that removing the rear chimney will not have a substantial impact on the character of the house, and that 2 historic chimneys will remain. The existing swimming pool, its patio, outdoor kitchen, pergola, and wood deck are all features that date from 1988 or later and are not historic, and removing these features will not impact any historic fabric or the historic character of the site. And staff recommends that the landscape plans be included with any final HOP submission, or they could be included as a separate HOP at a later date. The 17-foot square accessory structure will not detract from the character of the house, and its design and identified materials are compatible with the house and the proposed alterations. So staff requests feedback from the HPC on a number of issues. Most of them relate to the garage, including its partial demolition, the expansion of the garage footprint, the proposed roof form, and any recommended design revisions to the proposed garage alterations. Additionally, staff asked, does the HPC concur with staff's finding that the construction of the loggia and rear addition are appropriate? Does the HPC support the removal of the swimming pool and its associated hardscaping? And lastly, does the HPC support the construction of the proposed accessory structure? Staff identified a number of materials that need to be included in a HOP submission, including full detailed material specifications, including windows, doors, garage doors, specifications for any proposed exterior lighting, and architectural details for any new hardscaping. Additionally, if there is a swimming pool, its location, associated hardscaping, and the location of any mechanical components need to be included in the HOP. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Do any commissioners have, Commissioner Galway?
Yes, Commissioner Galway. All of these additions, the pool, the garage, did all that precede the Chevy Chase Historic Design Guidelines? Do you know, or was there a HOP for that stuff?
So that was all before the district was on the master plan for
Okay.
historic preservation. So I wasn't able to find historic preservation records for these alterations. They may have come in when this was a locational atlas district and received a determination that they were not substantial alterations, which would have received a letter, and then the applicant could have proceeded. But the HPC was not responsible for reviewing any of these changes.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for staff? It appears not, so we will have the applicant come forward. Clive and Aline Gilmore and Neil Thompson.
I'm Patrick Cook from Thompson Cook Architects, presenting on behalf of the owners Clive and Aline Gilmore.
Very good. You'll have, I believe, 7 minutes to make a presentation.
The staff's report has accurately and thoroughly represented the intent. I'm prepared to answer any questions and have a dialogue with the board as they see fit.
Very good. Thank you. Questions for the applicant? While everybody's thinking, I'll ask one. So stylistically, can you talk about your design stylistically relative to the main house?
Sure. We were looking to enclose the breezeway principally to connect originally with the garage. We chose to do this in a very sort of heavily glazed. We're using steel doors in this case, principally windowed doors, essentially to try to keep the same approach of an open breezeway between the two structures. We didn't find any history or any significance to the original garage, and as evidenced further by the fact that it's got one large door, which I think specifically the new regs require individual garage doors. So we've chosen to separate the two doors. This originally started to try to get a larger and taller garage. That door is a little bit low. It's about 6'8" tall. As we were doing this, we studied, there's currently a second floor on top of this garage, though a little bit difficult to access, non-code compliant stair to get up there, so chose to enlarge the doors, and rather than fully alter the proportions on the non-original fabric, we chose to reframe the roof, looking to the original building for a lot of inspiration. I should correct the record, though, we will not be using Spanish slate. During some analysis, the original roof wasn't designed to handle slate. It was actually designed for a wood shake roof. So we'll be submitting specifications to replace the asphalt shingle roof with a wood shake or potentially sans cedar shingle when we go forward with the full presentation for actual hop. If we flip around to the rear elevation, we continued that language that we started with the infill of the breezeway across the loggia on the back. Again, just taking inspiration, not necessarily to try to match the structure, but to continue that language of infill. Looking to the rear of the elevation of the main house, we stepped the eaves down below the original roof. As staff mentioned, this is an outstanding resource, and so we've taken the approach of essentially trying to leave as much of the original structure alone as we can. Dropping the eaves does a good job of delineating, though you can't see it from public space. We've been through enough historic preservation projects to kind of understand that we want to be able to tell a visual history in the house if you're viewing it from the rear yard. So this steps down from the roof on purpose. We've integrated these, for lack of a better term, what we would call wall dormers, the dormers that are engaged in the roof. As we did that to get appropriate headroom in the rear addition on the back of the house, we used that same language to inform back onto the garage. The rear elevation of the garage and the front elevation of the garage have those similar wall-engaged dormers just to give us additional ceiling height. I think the staff misspoke. We're about 3 feet higher on the roof elevation of the garage. I think they may have mentioned 3 inches higher, but I think we've dashed it in there fairly accurately.
Thank you. Other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Bond.
So on that 3 feet issue, could the roof line of the garage be brought back to align with the existing height?
Of the current garage? No, not with fitting the taller doors and the greater clearance in the garage. We needed to gain a little bit of headroom.
So it's a door, an aesthetic issue that's
A door
driving
and
your
a
height?
headroom issue on the second floor.
Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. The chimney that was being removed, that's what's showing up here on the existing rear elevation in the center of the original home.
That's correct. And there's no fireplace that leads to that chimney. That was a flue from a furnace or a basement boiler at some point.
And it looks like it might be higher than the ridge line of the roof. Do you know if it is? It's hard to tell because it's so far back from the back of the building.
We've represented that it is taller than the roof there, but you cannot see it from public space.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Bond.
Can you talk about the pergola that's on the front of the garage? I'm not sure I'm seeing that or heard that discussed so far.
Sure. Yeah, the pergola on the front of the garage is a new introduction on our part. We sort of took inspiration from the front, pedimented front entry, which has got engaged pilasters. We took an approach of an engaged pilaster and then a freestanding column. This is an opportunity to grow some greenery up the front facade of the garage. Front-facing garages are fairly rare in the neighborhood. In fact, most of the time we look to separate garages and put them in the rear yard. With that in mind, the taller doors, a little bit more height on the garage, we felt this was a good way of sort of breaking down that scale from the street.
Other questions? If not, I'm going to close. Commissioner Dominiani, last chance.
Okay, yeah. Can you talk to us a bit more about the front-facing dormers on the garage especially? I think there are also some matching rear-facing ones. I note that the original house doesn't seem to have many dormers at all, maybe just one on the attic level in the rear-facing. I'm just curious if you can talk us through maybe the choice for both the size of those windows. I'm noting sort of, I guess, a 4/2 arrangement on those windows, and then sort of a more narrow orientation relative to many of the historic windows. If you could just talk us through, I think it'd be helpful to understand, especially when coupled with that change in roof slope. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. If you tab forward to the rear elevation for a second, we've got, so if you look at the bottom example there, that shows the stepping down in the lower roof on the rear addition to the house that we're doing. That roof, getting as low as it did, sort of cuts off the typical head height in the bedroom space that's being provided. And so we looked to engage wall dormers there to get us the windows and head height. Well, rather than have that be its lone anomaly, we looked at repeating that same move on the garage. If we were going to increase the headroom height in the garage, we were going to raise that roof. We didn't necessarily want to pop dormers directly onto that roof. We kind of balanced that by bringing in the same language from the back of the house. It seemed appropriate as well without necessarily trying to, we're sort of playing this balance of keeping the garage scaled below the original house. To some extent, increasing the pitch from the original garage from 1988, but in doing so, that again just sort of helped us squeeze a functional second floor in with daylight.
Thank you for explaining. I think maybe I can react a little bit differently, or react to that a bit during the deliberation.
Very well. If there are no more questions for the applicant, do we have any public testimony on this case? It doesn't appear so. So with that, we will move into discussion and dialogue and give you our thoughts. Who would like to share their commentary? Commissioner Prather.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Prather. In terms of my feedback, the garage, the building additions, the accessory structure, they seem appropriate. The garage demolition does not impact any historic artifacts. The expansion of the garage footprint seems to be in alignment with the historic character. It also, the design revisions that have been displayed with the proposed roof, I do understand and deeply appreciate the fact that the upper level gaining the head height and using doors and things like that to give access more appropriately. So my conclusion is that the design is in alignment with everything that aligns with Chapter 24A, and I endorse and approve your plan as is.
Thank you. Commissioner Bond.
I think, thank you. I find proportionally and stylistically the existing garage and the house to have a better relationship than the expansion that we're shown here today. The garage redo has a lot going on, and as a result, I think detracts from the importance of the outstanding resource that it's attached to. So I would like to see a lot of these extras removed, like the pergola on the front. I think dormers may be inappropriate on the street-facing side of the garage. I'm not opposed to expanding the garage. I'd like for the roof line to have a more proportional relationship to the outstanding resource the way the garage does now in terms of slope. Maybe the height is okay, although I'd like to see the height brought down. I don't object to the rear additions or other changes.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Commissioner Galway.
I tend to agree. This is Commissioner Galway. I tend to agree with the other two commissioners who just spoke in both respects. Just to kind of go down through the list, the partial garage demolition I have no issue with. The expansion of the garage out the back where absolutely nobody can see it unless you're in a helicopter or you climb a rear fence into the yard. I think that's, I don't have any issue with that. The swimming pool, removal of the other swimming pool, I do think, I agree with staff that we need to understand a little bit more what you're doing with that new pool. And then also, just in addition to that, there was a comment about additional materials, and I'd like to understand, where you may have HVAC condensing units, where you might have a gas meter, anything that would be visible from the right of way. I think it's important to make sure that that's not an afterthought, that's something you plan for. I think massing in general, just the sizes look fine. Commissioner Bond talked about the elements that are on the garage, and I'm not as worried as I am just understanding the massing of the garage, and I think that it's not too tall. So from that standpoint, I think I could approve that as well. So I think in general, I think you've done a lot, and it's very nice. And I think that with some small adjustments, coming back with some of the material, the materials samples or or just a description of those materials you intend to use. I think those are more finite elements, but in all, I can support this. Thanks.
Commissioner Kaplan.
Hi. Yeah, I'm not concerned with anything we can't see from the street. Everything is fine in the back there. Also, I guess you can't see that chimney from the street either. So, but I would agree with Commissioner Bond that there is a lot going on. I feel like it shouldn't be more. There shouldn't be more orientation than with the house itself. So maybe if you can look at removing some of those features. And yeah, I'm fine with the height too, and I'm fine either way with the roof pitch. If it's matching the pitch of the house, that's fine. If it's not, I feel like it's differentiating it from the house. And in terms of that, also, are you planning to match the new stucco to the existing stucco?
We are, yeah, we're still using the same pebble dash stucco.
I'm wondering if maybe a kind of a slight variation might also serve to differentiate the new addition from the house. And this is also really minor, but also what are you proposing for I think there's like 2 lights that are going to be there.
We'll submit when we do actual cut sheets of the lights. We haven't gotten to an actual selection yet.
Okay, and then with those 2, I think they should be kind of similar to the originals. I assume they're originals on the main house, but maybe not exactly the same with kind of appropriate materials. But otherwise, yeah, I think everything looks good.
Thank you. So you've designed a very nice garage, but I shared the comments of Commissioner Bond that stylistically, and that was my question to you originally, seems to be sufficiently different than the main house, the main block. The main house is more of an Italian Renaissance style house, and your garage is a very nice kind of French provincial house with flared roof eaves and the dormers that break the soffit line. All bring it nice scale. Actually, as a entity in itself, I have no problem. It's very nicely designed and beautifully done. But relative to the main house, it seems like enough stylistic difference that I feel that it's makes it not compatible. I think I don't have a problem with the arbor per se. I don't have a problem with the detailing other than I don't think it's a good complement to the main block. So I think that's what Commissioner Bond was alluding to in her comments, and I would have to agree. I think with the steeper roof pitch, I understand you're trying to get more space up there. With the, as I said, the flared eaves, it stylistically is different and different enough that it seems odd to me. I don't have a problem with the loggia. I don't have a problem with everything else that you're doing, the expanded footprint, the loggia, the addition off the back. I think, although I noticed that you flared the second floor roof of the addition off the back, again, sort of contrary to the main block roof. And I think that's fundamentally where I think you run into a problem. I think you got to go back to the drawing board and rethink the garage. I don't think it's a suitable complement to the main house. The moves are, the size, all the plan parts are fine, but the architectural expression, I don't agree with. So I think you're hearing some support. You're hearing some not support in terms of the architectural style. And I think we need to come back with a landscape plan and material specs. And with that, if you have any final questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I do hear a request for differentiation, but also to make it more like the original structure. Differentiation in materiality,
it's your-
both from the pebble dash to a new, potentially different stucco texture. So I would like the board to have some consistency on whether they would like the building to more distinctly differentiate itself from the original structure or to more closely align.
Would we care to go down the line and express? Do we understand the question? So, Commissioner Bond.
I think the breezeway is breaking the two apart enough, and I would prefer the pebble dash to match between the garage and the house.
Commissioner Prather, do you have an opinion on that?
This is Commissioner Prather. I do not have an opinion on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominiani.
Yes, in my view, the breezeway, the loggia, the rear addition, the favoring a lot of glazing, I think, is sort of separating these two sufficiently enough that a differentiation in architectural style probably isn't required. In fact, I think it would probably, the garage would speak to the house better if it echoed a bit of the style of fenestration maybe, or perhaps even the roof pitch. I think it would complement much how the existing garage sort of does. It kind of rhymes a bit with the house. And that breezeway sets it apart. I think that the glazing similarly in the proposal would separate, but perhaps instead of, as you noted, the French provincial style maybe doesn't complement the house as much. Yeah. In terms of materiality,
Yep.
maybe matchy-matchy is better, but maybe I would defer until we actually see a plan there. Yeah.
Yep. I would agree. Matching the stucco makes sense. I think your real issue is the roof form. Commissioner Galway.
Yes, Commissioner Garway, I'm not gonna comment on the architectural styles. I just don't feel like I'm enough educated to do that. But I think when you've asked a question about differentiation, I think what we don't want is to try to make it look like it was, an outstanding resource that was original to the site. And I think, so when it comes to what I'm hearing is it's the architectural form. It's not necessarily the massing, but the form should be similar, even though it is distinguished maybe through the, I guess as Commissioner Kaplan said, maybe through the color of the stucco, or so there's something that when somebody really stands there and looks at it, says, oh, that's not original to the house, but it more complements the house and maybe not has these two maybe differentiated architectural styles. I don't know if that helps.
Commissioner Kaplan.
Yeah, I guess to answer your question, I feel like if you're taking away some of the ornamentation, you're bringing it closer in style to the house, and I think that's why I was trying to find other ways to differentiate it, so it's understood that it's new construction and not trying to replicate, not trying to be mistaken for original construction, and that's why I was okay with the different roof form. Yeah, so.
There you have it. I'm sure you're thoroughly confused now, but staff will help you muddle through the comments. They'll have a record of it and can provide you with notes, and please speak with them. Thank you for coming. It's a beautiful project, so.
Thank you very much.
Yep. All right, moving on. Are staff and commissioners okay, or do we need to take a short break? Okay, we're going to continue because nobody spoke out. Next case is 2B at 10201 Meredith Avenue, Silver Spring, and we have a staff report.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. 10201 Meredith Avenue in Silver Spring. It's one of the older resources in the Capitol View Park Historic District, constructed circa 1883. It's this oddly shaped lot you see on the right. This is to be reviewed under the Capitol View Park Historic District Amendment, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. So the applicant proposes to demolish a portion of the rear wall, construct a two-story addition at the rear, which projects beyond the left wall plane, and alter windows on the right and rear elevation. So again, this property is set back substantially from the front right-of-way. It's a very, very narrow lot, and the house is set on the right side of the lot. It's not centered. You see the road actually dead ends here, and it's sort of private access beyond where you see the road shift from asphalt to gravel. And then this is looking at the rear elevation of the house. So if you'll notice the building restriction line on the site plan on the left runs approximately through the middle of the front porch and the parlor and the kitchen, which really limits where an addition can go without a substantial variance. In response to that, the applicants have designed an addition that does project beyond the left wall plane, which is usually a disfavored practice, which is the primary reason that we recommended they come in for a preliminary consultation tonight. So we'll just run through the elevations real quickly. We'll also note that there is a 16-foot rise in grade from the front of the property to the front elevation of the house, so that will also help minimize the visibility of the addition. Here's the right side elevation. You'll note underneath the side gable, the fenestration doesn't align, and the applicants are proposing to pair windows on the first and second floor. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you see the addition has a wraparound porch. The two-story addition is kept lower than the historic house, than the primary ridge of the historic house. And they've utilized some small shed dormers and skylights to provide additional lighting inside. And then you see on the west elevation, so I've included the first floor plan. You can see the building restriction line runs through, right through the house. And then the aim is to make this a multi-generational house to accommodate aging parents, which is why there's an elevator included. So we'll go to 3 generations of family living under the roof. And I can pull up any of the other plans from the staff report or applicant's submission if you'd like. But staff found that the location of the addition is dictated by the zoning ordinance as the building restriction lines runs through the house. The addition projects 15.5 feet beyond the wall plane, but the lot rises 16 feet, which does limit visibility a little bit. The front wall plane is also substantially set back from Meredith Avenue by approximately 120 feet. And Pine Avenue dead ends at the subject property, which limits views of the right-of-way of the addition. The addition's height and massing are lower than the vertically oriented historic house as well. Because the addition is horizontally oriented, it avoids looming over the historic construction, which is a positive. The northeast corner of the house will retain its current expression. We often want to see additions retain the 4 corners of the historic house. However, there's no demarcation between the historic house and the addition in the northwest corner. That's on the left side. The addition's lower massing does create some contrast between the old construction and the new, and the wraparound porch helps to soften the edges of the proposed addition. So again, I pointed out in the elevation drawings the proposed fenestration alteration. The first floor window, which is circled in red, appears to be a non-historic replacement based on its size and 1/1 configuration. All the other windows in the house are 2/2s. But staff does not support the reconfiguration of the second floor window openings on the east elevation, which is the second floor right above. But staff does not find that installing a new window opening on the north elevation, which is the rear, will have a substantial impact on the house's historic character. So staff requests feedback from the HPC regarding the appropriateness of the location and side projection of the proposed rear addition, the size and massing of the proposed addition, the visual separation and differentiation between the historic building and the addition, and if the differentiation is insufficient, what design changes are recommended, and any comments on the appropriateness of reconfiguring reconfiguring the fenestration on the right elevation. Additionally, staff notes that a final HOP needs to include a roof plan, a materials and specifications package, information regarding any impacts on trees and plantings as mitigation, and any other materials requested by the HPC tonight. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Do commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. Clear this up for me. You do not recommend replacing the window that's out of alignment on Figure 10 on the east elevation, even though you're saying that you don't think that's an original window?
So staff is supportive of removing the first floor window, the 1/1 that's oddly shaped compared to the rest of the house. Okay. That appears to be a clear alteration. However, it's the relocation and the adjustment of the fenestration of the second floor windows that staff doesn't support.
Okay, it's not that you don't agree with the alignment, it's just moving the old window to align with the replacement window on the first floor as opposed to shifting everything to align with the existing upper window?
It's removing what is, based on all evidence, the original location of that second floor window.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Other questions for staff? Doesn't appear to be. With that, then, we will call the applicant, Brian McCarthy and Nathaniel Thomas. And if you would mind to push the mic button till it turns green and state your name for the record. I believe you'll have 7 minutes to make a presentation or anything you would like to say.
All right, I'll get started. Good evening, I'm Nathaniel Thomas. I'm the owner of the property at 10201 Meredith Avenue. This is Brian McCarthy.
Brian McCarthy of BFM Architecture in Silver Spring. Brian McCarthy, BFM Architecture in Silver Spring.
And I just have a very short statement, just so I don't forget anything. I'm just going to read from my computer if it's okay. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners, and staff of the Commission. My name is Nathaniel Thomas, and I appear before you this evening with my architect, Brian McCarthy of BFM Architecture. I'm the owner of said property, and we're here for preliminary consultation on the proposed partial demolition and construction of a 2-story rear addition to our home. My wife Kate and I purchased this property in 2016 and have lived there for the past 10 years, raising our 3 children. Our house was built in 1883 and is a Queen Anne style farmhouse, a contributing property within the Capitol View Park Historic District. Our goal with this addition is to accommodate the relocation and care of my wife's parents, Mark and Gloria, who increasingly require full-time care and support. A rear addition gives us the space to allow both generations to live together, along with our children, comfortably while preserving a degree of privacy and independence on both sides. As a house whose last major renovation was in the 1960s, this project also gives us an opportunity to address longstanding mechanical and other maintenance issues typical of an older home, such as HVAC and plumbing and the like. We engaged Brian McCarthy and BFM Architecture for this project specifically because of Mr. McCarthy's extensive portfolio working within historic districts and his knowledge of historical guidelines with the goal of designing something the Commission could work with. What Mr. McCarthy has developed is a 2-story addition with a basement located entirely at the rear and west side of the property, preserving the historical character and appearance of the house as seen from Meredith Avenue. We have brought an additional design option, just recently submitted within the past 24 hours, so don't know if we can bring it up. But for the Commission's review this evening, both options share the same footprint and massing. The primary difference between them is the exterior cladding, and the choice speaks directly to the question of how the addition differentiates itself from the original fabric, which we understand to be one of the central issues the Commission weighs. As you can see, they look very similar. So Mr. McCarthy is here to address any technical questions, and I'm here throughout if there are any questions about the program intent or family considerations. We're genuinely eager in this process, and that's why we're here. We want the commission's guidance before decisions are fixed, not after. In consultation with Mr. McCarthy and guided by the commission's feedback, we are open to alternate materials, design approaches, including the use of architectural hyphens and other connective elements to achieve appropriate differentiation from the historical structure. We're prepared to hear your feedback and carry it back into the design, and thank you for the opportunity to appear tonight.
Great, thank you.
Brian McCarthy here. Dan, can you bring up the 4th page of photographs that we submitted for context? That would be, okay, that would be 3120 Lee. I just want to clear up the potential confusion about what we're proposing to do to the windows on the east side. So right now, I guess we don't have something to refer to, but there is an arched window under the gable on the east side. And under that, on the 2nd floor, is a 2/2 double hung window that is set off center. What we're proposing to do is leave that window where it is and take one of the matching windows from the back facade and apply it next to it. So basically the mullion between the windows would be centered under that gable, which, I don't know, as an architect, it just bothers me that it's not centered. And then replicate that in the new guest suite below, where it's currently a vinyl window and a kitchen. So, right, that page 4, yes, right there. So the lower house there is directly across the street. Actually, these 2 gables face each other, and essentially what I'm suggesting is something that you see under that gable. You know, an arched window with a pair of double hungs below it and a pair of double hungs below that. It wouldn't be a bay like this, but essentially the fenestration would be treated the same way. Beyond that, I think Dan did a fine job of summarizing the issues, reiterating, of course, that we've got this very intrusive zoning setback we have to deal with to avoid, the vagaries of getting a variance. I don't know, Dan, if you have what we submitted yesterday in terms of the perspective from the street, which was the last element on that file. And that shows, yes, that shows a computer-generated photo-enhanced perspective of how small the addition would be because it's, a good 40 feet back from the front of the house at the top of a 16-foot hill. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Questions for the applicants? Commissioner Kaplan.
It's for the applicants and for staff, I guess. But is there any kind of assessment of that 2nd-story window, whether that's kind of the original placement, or if there was ever another window, or if, do we know what was there, or
There's nothing in our records to indicate what was there.
Okay.
The space was substantially reconfigured and an expansion was built out the back. So it would all be speculation unless we can find a historic photo.
Yeah, what's maddening about it is there's nothing on the inside that couldn't have centered that window initially. There's no closet or bathroom. It's just off-centered within the bedroom itself.
Any other questions for the applicants? If not, then we will give you our thoughts and feedback. Commissioner Dominiani.
I'm happy to lead off. Thank you for the presentation and for coming in. It's always good to start these with gratitude, so thank you for coming and presenting. I think that you have a lovely house, first of all, and it is a weird lot. You are constrained by some funky setbacks, a weird shape, and on top of that, a hill besides. While I tend to not favor in general, we see this in Tacoma Park frequently and elsewhere, side projections, very far from the side plan of the house. I understand the constraints you're under, and I think on the lot, it's actually appropriate. And this design and your plan, I think, are very tasteful, and the massing I find to be generally pretty appropriate. In terms of differentiation, I'm having a hard time, I think, with that, because many of the renderings that I'm seeing tend to show like matching materials that are very similar, so I'm having a hard time with differentiation right now. I think the architects, I'm not a professional architect, many of the other people up here are, and they're going to be able to speak to that maybe better than I can, but it is an area maybe of a little concern. But I also don't have a problem with the reconfigured fenestration as described. I appreciate the architect of the applicant's note that historic window itself would actually be relocated up there. I think that is nice, especially if the historic windows actually are the same size as each other, and to make them a twin, I think, is an interesting solution. I agree, it's nice to have symmetry. So overall, I think that this is a type of application that I could find myself supporting, even with the large side projection, which I tend to not favor under other circumstances. I think here it's appropriate. That's all for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Bond.
Thank you. I also could support this addition, but we do need to look at materials to differentiate. It might be as simple as not, copying the proportion of the fancy cut at the peak of the addition, or maybe eliminating the fancy cut shingle. Maybe it's a different size. I don't think siding is quite appropriate, but I think we need to look a little harder at how we can make that visual separation. Thank you.
Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. It looked as though the ridge line of the addition was pretty much at the same height as the original home.
The ridge line of the new primary bedroom in the back is about 5 inches lower than the gable, which has the arched window in it.
I see
About
it,
2.5 feet lower than the main roof.
Right, so, okay, just a matter of inches below the other gable.
Right.
The end gable. I think that it's an interesting site. Trying to figure out how to organize my thoughts here. If this had been right up against, if Meredith Avenue would have been right there, and you would have stepped out and seen the house, and there was and it didn't dead end, I would be super concerned about not having some sort of notch or some sort of change in plane where the new addition on the west, or on the planned west side, on the west side here, connects to the old home, but that the little isometric or image that you showed us at the end there, it's really hard to be, you wouldn't see it anyway, probably, so that's really, I can't even find myself arguing that point in this case, but I do think the materials are going to be important, because at that distance, what I don't think it would be appropriate is to look at this house and say, I can't tell what was the original and what was the addition. So differentiating that in a way that allows somebody, if they were to go to the end of Meredith and look back, they could say, okay, that's clearly an addition. So I think from a massing standpoint, make sure that it doesn't appear as if that addition is overpowering the original home. That's going to be important. And it doesn't look like it based on that image that you showed, so that would be something I'd be looking for. Other than that, I guess the window, you said you didn't quite understand why it was misaligned, and as an architect, you'd feel, the need to align them. I might take a different approach if that's the way it is. Maybe you just leave it the way it is, and take out the smaller window that was clearly a replacement, and align that for sure with your historic opening and your historic window above. They just wouldn't align with your arch window, and if there's no reason why if you can't figure out why they did it, why change it? Maybe this is kind of one of the thoughts that I might have, even though it might cause you some trouble here, some angst about the fact that it's not aligned. But I think. I think the idea that you're going to remove another window, might be something that I could support, doubling it up with an existing window that you're replacing. That's a good, second best solution. But my first reaction is leave it where it is. Try to get over that idea of not being aligned, and then if he came back with a double window, knowing that the ones came from somewhere else, I might be okay with it. So, that's all the questions, all the comments I have.
I will give you some thoughts. I agree, I should want to say first that each case is taken on its individual merits and conditions. So given the site situation and setback limitations, I'm in agreement with staff's analysis. And in this case, I have no issue with the addition projecting forward of the house plane. I think the massing is nicely done in a manner that is certainly sympathetic to the historic resource massing, and I feel the offsets at both the first floor and second floor maintain definition of the original historic home and maintains the hierarchy of the two parts. As it regards the windows, the front elevation, I believe, does have a pair of windows that would be similar to what we're talking about here. So I am in favor of changing the windows and making them symmetrically oriented and stacked. So overall, I'm supporting the project. I'm not as worried about the material differentiation because I think the massing is sufficiently different, and the offsets will allow you to understand the historic resources versus the addition. That said, if you were of the thought to change perhaps the material between the two gables, maybe it's panelized like you have on the west side, maybe that panelization carries over, and that could be sort of the hyphen, if you will, visual hyphen that might make that separation. But I would not, I would support it either way, let's put it that way. The only comment I might have is I was somewhat, this might be a minor comment at that, but the spacing of your porch columns on the east side, I keep wanting them to be more symmetrical about the gable roof than the, I believe that's the kitchen windows. But I think that's a minor thing that you can work out. It seems like it, in elevation, perhaps not in perspectively, you would even read that, but it feels like the porch column should relate more to the overall gable massing and not offset from that center line. But overall, I support the project as fundamentally designed with the additional information that staff has requested. And are there any other questions, comments? Commissioner Kaplan?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a project where someone's doubling the size of their house and just being so reverential to the original house and not having it get lost. I think the setback issue ends up being a blessing. I love the that round window in the gable. It kind of takes a defining feature of the original house and kind of spins it, doing it a different way. And yeah, I don't really know where to fall on the windows. It's always hard when you don't know what the original windows were. So kind of I think either way. But yeah, it looks great. And then I think you had in your materials that you were looking for guidance as to what materials to use in the new the addition to differentiate. And I would say just I would just keep it simple rather than using different sidings. So I can get, because that would also, so the simplicity would also differentiate it from the original part of the house. So.
And if there's no more feedback, then you've heard generally support for the project with some refinements to be made. Staff has all this, recorded all this. They get with them for notes and next steps, but I think you would be ready to come back with the HOP. I think everybody's in agreement with that. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next preliminary is 2C at 10701 Keswick Street, Garrett Park. And we have a staff report.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. This is the third preliminary consultation for infill construction at 10701 Keswick Street in Garrett Park. It's in the environmental setting of the Truett-Richter master plan site. That house was constructed circa 1894, and it's a tall colonial revival house. And as a master plan site, this is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So the applicant proposes to construct a new single-family house in the environmental setting, remove, it says several trees, but I believe it's 42, expand the existing curb cut and hardscaping, and regrade the lot. The proposal includes an accessory structure which was previously reviewed by and supported by the HPC, so we're not going to get into that in this hearing. Going back to April of last year, the HPC voted to recommend the approval of the administrative subdivision, which created a new lot within the environmental setting. In December, the HPC held a first preliminary consultation evaluating the design, focused on overall size and massing. The HPC found that design to be too massive to be compatible. And January 21st, the HPC held a second preliminary consultation and found that the house was still too massive to satisfy the requirements of 24A and the standards. And the applicant has come back with a substantially revised version based on the HPC's feedback. So again, in the upper right is the Truett-Richter house, which is 80-some feet away from the proposed house. You see the oddly shaped lot designed here to avoid capturing an accessory structure. And we see more development in the curb cut and proposed driveway. And the applicant's revised design is sort of a contemporary prairie design with a partial wraparound porch in the left, and then there's a right-sized projection with a mudroom and screened-in porch back there. This is the right elevation. You see the side entrance and the wraparound porch there. And then the left, which includes a basement areaway and access there. And then the rear elevation. So the floor plans. The house is substantially narrower than the previous proposal. And then a partial streetscape study. You see the separation between the Truett-Richter house, the proposed house, and then the neighboring property. Again, this is just it's a master plan site, so the surrounding neighborhood is not part of the Garrett Park Historic District. It's not designated, but it is, we're including that just for contextual purposes. A lot of the surrounding houses are mid-century modern designs, which maybe could be a historic district at some future time. Maybe I shouldn't have said that to super. So again, this is the current perspective from Keswick. There is an existing curb cut with access. The applicants provided some illustrative images for the proposal up at the front of the lot. So staff finds that a contemporary interpretation of a prairie-style house, which stresses horizontality, is an appropriate contrast to the very tall, vertically oriented Truett-Richter house. And the overall house has been substantially narrowed, and the added front projection further narrows the perceived mass of the house and its width. Staff finds that the applicant responded to the HPC's comments from the January preliminary consultation, and that the wraparound porch and mudroom forms are awkward and recommended some revisions to the design of these features. Staff finds that the house style will not visually compete with the historic house and will blend in with the surrounding neighborhood, and finds that the overhangs of the main hipped roof are too narrow and should be extended. And staff encourages the applicant to revise the fenestration to enlarge or widen the windows. This is particularly on the left and right elevations. And staff recommends additional design embellishment to decrease the amount of uninterrupted flat wall surfaces. Staff finds that the changes to the existing hardscape are necessary to access the site, and that the illustrative design is compatible with the character of the site. Additionally, staff notes that most of the trees proposed for removal were planted by the current owners of the Truett-Richter House and do not reflect the historic character of the site. Staff supports the removal of these trees. As a master plan site, when it came in for administrative subdivision, all trees that were larger than 1 inch diameter at breast height were recorded and identified, and that was part of the HPC's recommendation for the administrative subdivision. So staff requests feedback from the HPC regarding the appropriateness of the size and massing of the proposed house, the style and architectural details of the proposed house, the front and rear porch forms, the proposed hardscaping, and any additional comments. The applicant did provide some additional information, but it came after the staff report, and staff hasn't had time to provide additional analysis and recommendation for that. So we can present those information, but staff is not providing any comments on that. And the applicants also provided their own presentation. So again, a final HOP submission must include detailed material specifications, including siding materials, windows, doors, porch materials, et cetera. Detailed drawings of elements like the windows and columns, and any other materials identified by the HPC. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Do any commissioners have questions? Commissioner Galway.
Yes, Commissioner Galway. There's a dashed line on the site plan, existing forest, and is it your understanding that the trees that are located behind or within that zone are not to be removed? Are they sacred, or the tree removal just going to occur where the building is? Do you know?
Well, you see the limits of disturbance on this line. So we can compare that, I believe, as part of the application, but I didn't include it in this presentation. The forest stand delineation and natural resource inventory was included as part of the application materials.
Yeah,
So
there's a slide over one goes over the other, and I don't. If it's a forest, there must be a lot more trees there. I don't remember being at the site, but okay. I mean, it looks like
this
it's
area
minimal.
of the, sorry, let me bring this photo. So, I mean, this is a photo of the current lot conditions. Right. It's a heavily forested lot. This was a farmhouse originally, so it would have had cleared space around it. And the current owners of the Truett-Richter House have planted an enormous amount of trees on the site.
I'm good, thanks.
Other questions for staff? Seems like there are none, so we will move on to the applicants. We have Daniel Andrews and Tanya Bruno.
Good evening. Daniel Andrews here, owner and applicant.
Tanya Bruno, Quiet Stream Architecture.
Thank you. I believe you'll have 7 minutes to make a presentation or answer questions.
Yeah, all right. Well, good evening again. Nice to see you all. And thank you, staff, for the report. I think Dan is pulling up. I sent him a little slideshow today. I reviewed the comments from the HP staff and agree with and understand them. And then I just take you through a little bit of how the project has evolved since the last time I saw you. I was doing lots of research into Holland Hills and Rock Creek Woods, as you guys recommended. And I was looking for lower, more horizontal kind of houses that would fit in. And it actually kind of took me even farther back in time to prairie style, because there's actually a prairie house in Garrett Park that I've always kind of admired. And so I went in more of that direction with low-hipped roofs. And so then I just prepared a small presentation because I wanted to address some of the comments from the HP staff and kind of further show that we're willing, I have some additions that I guess maybe could potentially satisfy, so to allow for more prescriptive guidance or more clear prescriptive guidance so that we can continue to hop after this. And so we can go to the first slide. And so for the roof overhangs, I agree, bigger would always be better. And then there's kind of the issue of feasibility or cost implications or structural issues. And so I like the notion of the higher the roof, the bigger the overhang. And so for the higher roof section, we can have about 2.5 feet. And then for the lower, we have 1.5 feet as a kind of differentiation measure. And then we continue to the next slide. So for the front porch notion, I guess it was a failed attempt I really liked the porch couchère notion, and I wanted to kind of give a little ode to it, but it kind of continued to the egress to the basement stairs, and so it was a misread, and I was kind of off. We can extend the porch to the full length, and the impact would be on the next slide, so we can take the stairs from the basement. They come out directly behind the stairs, so there's a little impact, and then we only have the full columns on the left side, so the front, and what you see from the street side is mostly columns above the porch. And then to continue, for exterior, for window grouping or kind of getting everything together, I thought of a banding system, so kind of give us more horizontal datums kind of in the prairie architecture. So we'd have a frieze band so that even though we didn't extend the overhang too much at the top, we have it darkened so it increases the shadow or perceived shadow. The belt band that would be at the second floor level, the transom band right at that transom window level, and then the limestone cap. So it gives and continues that horizontality, which also then would transfer into the retaining walls at the front as you enter or like perceive the house from the street. And so I have just another illustrative, not to scale, this is just a rendering. And it'd be more earth tone consistent palette. It kept on giving me black, and I couldn't get it to give me differently. And so that's just for illustration purposes. And the last is this mudroom. So the next slide, this back left corner, which is actually, it's 30 feet back off the front. So we didn't perceive it as too much, but since the roof is coming off and maybe the screen porch is much more transparent, if you put columns there, I think it would potentially satisfy and give a good grounding unit so that you have the full width or like the perceived corners and not have these hanging roof structures. And so everything else from the staff report I pretty much agree with and understand it. And I'm excited to kind of continue working on this project in the direction that I see now. And I feel, oh, actually there's one more slide here because I forgot now it almost perfectly aligns up, so the main entrance for the historical building now is this side entrance that we use on a daily basis because I'm currently residing in that historical house. And so this side entrance to the mudroom is actually a direct path between the two. And so I liked having that covered entrance to not have like the exposed doors, and also it shelters it and it defers to that historical structure much more. And so that was kind of the thinking behind that. And then the thinking behind that whole horizontality, kind of blending in with the environment, being subservient. And so that's where we are today. And I look forward to hearing your comments and questions.
Thank you very much. Questions for the applicant, Commissioner Prather.
Yes, this is Commissioner Prather. I want to first commend you for incorporating the feedback that both staff and we commissioners provided a few months ago. We can see the application very clearly. I have a question regarding the bans, and specifically in that historic community, what is the use case of the bans? Is there another home, or is it a universal concept of the use of bans in that neighborhood?
Within the Yard Park community?
The freeze bans, like all the bans you showed, is that consistent? And are there other homes that have that same representation?
There's only one other prairie home that I know of within Garrett Park. It does have lots of horizontality. It has like a brick kind of facade at the front with a capstone. I think there's a porch level. There might be a freeze ban. I would have to look at it, so I'm not exactly sure.
I think I saw maybe 4 different types of bands.
Yes.
So is that unique? Is your presentation unique? Or is it some houses in that community that have the bands?
I'm not sure
Okay.
how to answer that.
It seems to
Yeah.
stand out a little bit for me. I was just curious.
Commissioner
Okay.
Prather, if I can jump in, some banding is relatively common in the prairie style. So if you look at the textbook examples, you'll see that commonly in the designs that employ stucco instead of brick or other materials. So it's stylistically, I think, appropriate for that design of the house.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Other questions for the applicant? No? It's getting late. If no more questions, then we will give you feedback and our thoughts. And I'd be happy to sort of launch that discussion. Well, I think you've come a long way from the very first presentation, so thank you for hanging in there. I think the direction that you are going is appropriate. And I think the sketches that you've shown tonight in your presentation, which has the additional banding than what's in the staff report, is a step forward. So I think probably my biggest comment would be that to maybe consider the height, room height. Looks like you have 10 feet on the main level and 9 feet at the second floor level. And the prairie style, as you said, is about horizontal orientation. And part of that is in terms of, if you look at a lot of the Frank Lloyd Wright homes, you come in low and then the spaces explode upward. So there's this compression and then expansion throughout his homes typically. And I think proportionally what's happening in your house is that your height sort of contradicts the horizontality. And I think you ought to consider possibly maybe doing 9.5 foot on the first floor and 8 foot on the second floor, more standard, and bring it down more. I think proportionally would work. I think your porch is relatively tall, again, to the height of the overall massing. So it tends to contradict the horizontality and starts to push it vertically. The use of brick, I guess I do have a question in that I see you used the brick at the very front bay projection and looks like around the mudroom, but it's sort of more of a decorative feature than more about the overall home's cladding. And I wanted to get your thoughts about that. I mean, Um, What's the rationale for stopping the brick? Why just on this front piece, or why around the mudroom but not other places? It seems random use of brick in many prairie-style homes, particularly of the 20s, 30s, 40s. You have brick that wraps the whole house, or at least from the band course or the sill course down might be brick, and then you might have a different material above. So that seems kind of sort of randomly distributed around the house. And I think if you had more consistency, again, it would be better. Now, unfortunately, we don't have all the information that you showed tonight and with the updated elevations, but I think that still would be the same comment, even with your updated elevations. I do think the banding is definitely an improvement, and that's definitely on the right course. And I think overall the planning strategy I'm fine with, in terms of location of the mudroom, the projection from the front face back, I think is all fine. Generally, the massing I find to be generally fine, but it needs a level of refinement that I think is still lacking. Other comments? Commissioner Bond.
I'd just like to highlight the staff recommendation, which I agree with, about the contemporary prairie being a very nice direction for this. But the hipped roof form, the upper level, the overhang needs to be deeper. So that's something to take a look at. It's too shallow currently. Take a look at that.
What is it currently? The one that they're looking at?
Oh,
The
that was
previous
2 feet, now we made it 30 inches.
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 feet, 30 inches.
Can we see their presentation, their elevations in their presentation again?
I mainly just had the front one. The sides and others, I just took out excerpts to highlight the certain areas. But I shared them previously with Dan, but
There you see it.
Yeah, definitely the band under the soffit is useful. I agree. It probably really needs to be, instead of 30, 36, 38, to really be honest prairie. I still think your porch roof is too high. I think your floor to floors should come down a little bit proportionally. The thoughts, Commissioner Galloway.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Galway. I remember on one of the first preliminaries where the overall height of your home really actually was probably equal to, if not higher than, the Truett Richter house next door, and the massing, it was just much too much, and you've done a wonderful job. And when I look at the streetscape, it just feels right. So I commend you for that. I do think that the massing is much improved and certainly approvable from my standpoint. So kudos to you on that. I like the contemporary prairie. I think it's you're not trying to compete with, believe it or not, with the historic home to the right facing or the home to the left. So I think it just complements the street. So I like the way you went. The one thing that if it was me, I'd probably play around with the size, and that's that very large, I don't know if it's a bow or a bay window that looks like it's probably a bedroom or something upstairs. It seems like a lot of glass, and I tried to visualize maybe if it was a little smaller. It has to be the same height, or should be the same height as your other window to the right. So I'm not sure it's the wrong size. It just, my eye goes to that, and there's just something. I assume that's not a casement. Is it a fixed? Is it intended to be just a fixed window, or is it just the casement's not being shown on the two side lights?
is that above the front porch?
The front porch, yeah.
Yeah, it's a stairwell. And so it's a fixed window.
Okay, okay. So I don't know, that maybe just play with the size of it and make sure that's the right size. But I mean, all in all, I like what I see, and I certainly could support it, and I support the staff recommendations as well. Thanks.
Any other thoughts? If not, I think you are hearing general support for the project. We feel that the size and massing of the proposed house is improved and on the right track stylistically. The Prairie style is on track with some additional development and refinement. You heard me speak about the front porch. We didn't really focus on the hardscape so much, but I think, I guess for me, I would like to see another preliminary review with the updated details and maybe some three-dimensional drawings, some modeling would be useful, I think, for us to understand how in 3 dimensions this all works. And then as well as the materials and specifications as such that staff was requesting to begin to submit that for review. But I think you're definitely on the right track, and I think I feel one more round of preliminary is in order to really pull it together. I don't know if the other commissioners have opinions about that. I'd be happy to entertain those. Yes, right. See,
Yeah, it just seems like your notes are substantive enough, so it might be good for them to come back one more time.
okay. So we thank you for coming in. If you have any questions, staff has notes from today's meeting, but I appreciate your coming in, and I think you are headed in the right direction.
So for clarification purposes, in terms of why we can't proceed with the HOP and why a preliminary is requested again, is because the detailing for the architectural details of the proposed house is the main element, because you're talking about 3D renderings, and I guess it's...
Well, that we, you came in with revised partial elevation, so we really haven't seen the entire house. In your presentation, you came in with different drawing set than what was in the staff report. So, and that was only of the front. So we really need to have a holistic package, and that's the reason.
They're just basic iterations off of the previous ones, just going in line with the staff recommendations of things that they would recommend to get us on that right path.
And you're certainly going on the right path, but I still think it's still an underdeveloped project from our perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. I think, given the time, we will take a 5-minute break before we go to the next item. So it's now 9:42. We'll be back here by, say, 9:53, 10 minutes. We're back. And the next item we will hear is a public hearing work session to amend the master plan for historic preservation, the Dr. Margaret Snow House at 9013 Flower Avenue, Silver Spring. And do we have a staff report?
Good evening again. Dan Brugert for the record. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge Serena Bollinger, a former staff member who did 99.9% of this work. It's nice that my name gets to be on the PowerPoint, but she did all the work. So the purpose of tonight's public hearing and work session is for the Historic Preservation Commission to determine whether the Dr. Margaret Snow House satisfies the designation criteria for listing on the Locational Atlas and Index of Historic Sites and Master Plan for Historic Preservation. Snow House is a 1936 Art Moderne house where Dr. Margaret Snow had a medical practice for 58 years. Overall, staff found that the property meets the designation criteria and requests that the HPC take the following action. First, that it finds the house meets the designation criteria. Second, that it recommends that the planning board list the property on the locational atlas. And 3, recommends that the county council list the property on the master plan for historic preservation. So as background on the site, and in 2024, Montgomery Planning is launching the Eastern Silver Spring Communities Plan. This is the outline of the plan area. This effort focuses on Silver Spring neighborhoods east of the Sligo Creek Stream Valley Park and south of the Capitol Beltway, and amends several existing master and sector plans. The plan aims to take a comprehensive look at how people live, work, play, and shop in their community, to create a vision for the future of the community and make recommendations to help achieve that vision. As part of this plan, staff is recommending the designation of one site to the master plan for historic preservation. So resources listed to the master plan must satisfy historic and cultural significance or architectural and design significance, and the designation process includes hearing at the Historic Preservation Commission, the Planning Board, and County Council, who ultimately determines whether a resource is listed. Master plan historic sites must meet criteria stipulated in the county code to qualify for historic designation, and the Historic Preservation Commission will utilize the typical designation criteria for an amendment to the master plan for historic preservation to assess whether the property meets the requirements for listing. In 2024, 9013 Flower Avenue was identified as a potentially significant resource in the area for its architecture. In 2025, consultants contacted the current property owners to notify them about the architectural survey that would be performed from the right-of-way and invited them to be involved in the process. The owners responded positively, they're here today, and after research indicated that the house fulfilled the county's designation criteria, Historic Preservation staff approached the owners about designation. Staff met with the owners at home for several site visits and worked with them to survey the house. Historic Preservation staff did the research at several archival institutions and discovered numerous references to the property in trade journals and newspapers, as well as amassing research about the decades of service provided by Dr. Margaret Snow. 9013 Flower Avenue is a 1936 Art Moderne style house on a 0.23 acre parcel on Flower Avenue and Highland View east of Silver Spring. This is also about a half a mile away from the Flower Theater, which we've seen hops for in the last couple years. The Dr. Margaret Snow House, it's two-story concrete residential in the Art Moderne style. This property and the nearby Neeland House at 206 East Wayne Avenue are the only two Art Moderne style houses in the Highland View neighborhood, and only four houses located in Montgomery County. The dwelling was constructed in several phases. The original design of the Snow House consisted of a single-story residence with a roof terrace constructed in 1936. Owners have expanded the house in 3 separate building campaigns. The construction of the north wing and the two-story rear addition built between 1949 and 51, and a renovation of the southeast corner of the building in the 2010s. The house has a poured concrete foundation and poured concrete walls. The two-story section raised later has a concrete block walls, and the reconstructed corner is also made of concrete. Most of the exterior walls are of poured concrete, and some original walls have horizontal grooves common to Art Moderne style houses. The building's roofs are flat, edged with a poured concrete coping, and are accessible via an exterior concrete staircase. The roof terrace is enclosed by a simple metal balustrade with curved corners that mimicked the curved walls below. The home was built by J.E. Hines, who's pictured above, and was widely advertised for its concrete construction. The material was adopted on a widespread basis in the early 20th century with the development of reinforced concrete. Architects like Frank Lloyd Wright experimented with concrete because it offered both structural and aesthetic flexibility. The malleability of concrete allowed architects and builders to design non-traditional building forms, such as curved walls, cantilevered forms, and flat roofs that would have been difficult to achieve with traditional wood framing. This development unlocked the ability to pursue the sleek, aerodynamic forms that are integrally associated with Art Moderne. Widespread use of residential concrete construction during the Great Depression also reflected an economic and social concerns of the 1930s. Manufacturers and buildings promoted the material as a durable, fire-resistant, pest-resistant, low-maintenance material that could offer affordability and sanitary housing options in a way that traditional materials could not. Concrete manufacturers aggressively marketed the material to middle-class homeowners. And the home on Flower Avenue was featured in Concrete Builder magazine in 1937, with the builder explaining that concrete was permanent, resisted all the natural elements, and had none of the drawbacks present in any other materials and cost practically nothing to maintain. Its use was so flexible that any kind of design could be constructed with it by laborers under capable supervision. He then detailed the processes to build the forms for the Flower Avenue house and to illustrate how developers could pour concrete to the same result consistently, bringing down manufacturing cost. J.E. Hines used the house on Flower Avenue as a central element of his marketing for the concrete construction he believed was the material of the future. In addition to reporting its positive characteristics in the Evening Star, he partnered with the Celotex Company, the world's largest manufacturer of structural insulation, and allowed the home at 9013 Flower Avenue to be used as a real-world example of the use of Thermax, their patented fireproof structural insulating slab. And J.E. Hines reported that hundreds of people came to visit the home when it was opened to the public in 1936. And just as a personal comment, I always love the juxtaposition of these cars that look so old and the house design that looks so futuristic. Ivan Martson worked as a psychologist and made a name for himself as one of 22 licensed mediums in Washington, D.C., claiming to be able to predict up to 5 years into the future. The Marsdens lived at the property for 4 years, selling it in 1942 to the first in a series of short-term homeowners who occupied the property for 1 or 2 years, stretches throughout the 1940s. Lee and Margaret Snow married in Washington, D.C., and received their doctorates from George Washington University School of Medicine. When Margaret graduated in 1946, she was one of only 5 women in a class with 78 men. And between 1946 and 1947, Dr. Margaret Snow completed her internship at Garfield Memorial Hospital in Washington, D.C., and began her children's residency at the Children's Hospital of Washington, while they rented 914 Sligo Avenue in Silver Spring. Shortly before the couple relocated to Highland View, Dr. Margaret Snow specialized in family medicine. And when the Dr. Snow moved into the house at 9013 Flower Avenue in 1951, they used the premises both as a working office and a home for their 7 children. Early in their residency, the Snows constructed a large 2-story addition at the rear of the house, which was used for a living space. They used the north wing as the professional office space, which had a waiting room, bathroom, office, and exam and treatment rooms. Dr. Snow practiced medicine throughout her residency at 913 Flower Avenue. In 1956, Dr. Margaret Snow was one of only 5 women registered as a practicing physician in Silver Spring. She practiced both from her home office and as staff member at regional hospitals, including George Washington University Hospital, Washington Adventist Hospital, and Holy Cross Hospital in Silver Spring. In 1978, she began teaching as a precipitator in the physician's assistant program at the George Washington University School of Medicine. Dr. Margaret Snows purchased a farm property in Damascus, Montgomery County, called the Welcome Home Again Farms, where she also saw patients, some of whom recollected that she would pause her daily chores to examine them, even if they came into the farm unannounced. Dr. Margaret Snow was deeply engaged with the county's social and political activities throughout her life. She was a member of the Silver Spring Business and Professional Women's Club, and in 1954, she helped spearhead their initiative to provide aid and financial support to the county's mentally disabled children. Between 1961 and 1964, she served as the secretary of the Montgomery County Board of Commerce, and throughout the 1960s, Dr. Snow led an effort on behalf of Montgomery County University Foundation, in which she served at times as co-chair, treasurer, and secretary to attract Science and Technology University to the county. The project was ultimately unsuccessful, but generated interest and awareness, and Dr. Margaret Snow leveraged her significant political and business connections to advance its aims. One article describing the organization's progress noted that she devoted part of virtually every day to its development on a purely volunteer basis. Dr. Snow further served as the Silver Spring precinct chairman for the Republican Party from 1969 to 71, and held membership in numerous other local and national organizations, including the National Board of Medical Examiners, the American Board of Family Practice, the American Medical Association, the Eastern Psychoanalytic Association, and the Montgomery County Medical Society. So just briefly into staff's evaluation recommendations regarding the architectural context. Dr. Margaret Snow House was built in the Art Moderne style, which emerged in the 1930s as a simplified Depression-era variety of the 1920s Art Deco style. Its aesthetic reflected the period's growing interest in technology, speed, and progress. Residentially, the style typically featured flat roofs with parapets, gently curved walls, asymmetrical facades, and long, unbroken lines, and an emphasis on horizontal massing, contrary to the verticality associated with Art Deco architecture. Construction materials commonly included concrete, stucco, glass block, chrome, and metal railing used to evoke contemporary industrial design. Corner windows, portal windows, and horizontal balustrades were used to emulate nautical and automotive design. The Art Moderne style harkens to a moment when technology and advancement had captured the cultural imagination to such an extent that their impact had bled into art and architecture. Its inclusion timestamps this moment in the suburbanization boom in the county, demonstrating the speculative construction builders were producing to lure modern buyers and appear to contemporary needs. The building displays several design features that are considered seminal elements of the style. It has a low profile with long sight lines. The structure is concrete construction, scored in several places. It has a cantilevered recessed porch. It's curved metal balustrade, a note to the industrial nautical aesthetic with steel corner windows throughout. The Silver Spring area contains the highest density of Art Moderne styles in the county. Specifically, its commercial buildings, including the Flower Theater and Shopping Center on Flower Avenue, the Canada Dry Bottling Plant, and several buildings in the Silver Spring Commercial District, such as the Silver Theater and Shopping Center. There are, Art Moderne residences are particularly rare in the county. There are only 4 that we know of. And the Modern House Exhibit House at 11018 Montrose Avenue in Garrett Park, 206 East Wayne and Highland View, and the NBC House of the Future at 5150 Massachusetts Avenue in Bethesda. The outbreak of World War II generally quashed construction of the Art Moderne style buildings as resources were diverted to the war effort, and subsequent styles embodied more Spartan ideals and functional design. Briefly, the historic context of the house is represented by the home. related to Dr. Margaret Snow. She lived and practiced medicine at the property for 58 years. She purchased the home early in her career as a family medical physician, having graduated medical school, again, as one of 5 female doctors. She provided medical school services to the community directly from her home and was one of very few female doctors practicing in Silver Spring in the 1950s. She served Montgomery County throughout her entire career, and her home was integral to her practice. She was a fixture in the community. In addition to her 60 years practicing as a doctor, she held leadership roles in organizations throughout the county and national boards as well. So master plan sites must meet criteria stipulated in county code to qualify for historic designation. The Historic Preservation Commission will utilize the typical designation criteria for an amendment to the master plan for historic preservation to assess whether the property meets the designation requirements for listing. Staff finds that the Snow House meets designation criteria 1C and 2A, shown on the slides, of Chapter 24A3, the County Code. It's a striking example of a concrete art moderne house on Flower Avenue, and it has integrity of design, workmanship, materials, location, and setting. The house is an important example of the style in a county where this is otherwise a rare example. Though its materials, design, massing, and workmanship, feeling, and association, it continues to convey the spirit of the 1930s, its fascination with technology, and the futuristic aesthetic that define art moderne. The early 20th century was a movement of important growth for Montgomery County, and the presence of this style of home in an early automotive suburb represents this era's cutting-edge design, innovation, and building practice. The influx of diversified professionals making their homes here. Sorry, that got a lot of comment. The home's current design and layout are consistent with its period of significance and Dr. Margaret Snow's residency. Dr. Margaret Throckmorton Snow lived in this home, for 58 years. Again, graduate of George Washington University, a limited number of women, and maintained the house and family medical practice throughout. It's a significant resource that represents the lifetime of work of a working female doctor who operated her own practice. And fewer than 1% of master plan sites represent Montgomery County women's achievements in the medical field despite their remarkable impacts. The Snow House would join several sites on the master plan for historic preservation, highlighting the work of women in the county who have impacted medicine at both the county level and the national levels, including the Clara Barton House, which is the home of Clara Barton and the headquarters of the American Red Cross, Crestview, home of one of the county's earliest female physicians and surgeons, Timberlawn, which was designated recently, where Eunice Kennedy Shriver helped craft federal legislation protecting maternal and children's health, and the Peon House in Potomac Overlook, home of Yu-Ming Hu, one of a few women doctors working at Holy Cross Hospital when it opened in 1936. And I will answer any questions that you have, and I will try to answer any questions you have, and we'll do our best. Thank you.
Thank you for that very inspiring presentation, very detailed. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Bruckert? Not even one. You did a great job. If not, then we will have, an applicant here, Peter and Patricia Chick. Welcome. Good evening. If you have a seat and push the button on the mic till it turns green and just state your name for the record. And I believe you'll have 7 minutes or so to speak about the Margaret Snow House.
We are the Chicks, Peter and Patricia. We own the house at 9013 Flower Avenue, Silver Spring, which we bought from the Snow family 15 years ago. We're here to tell you that we're totally in favor of the listing.
And that's it, right? 7 minutes.
Excellent. Have you enjoyed the house so far?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And you are the architect that prepared some of the addition drawings, or no?
No, not the addition. We've done a total renovation, ground-up renovation. The additions are very interesting in that they are in totally the same style as the original house. There's no evidence that they were done by the original architect, but I'm pretty sure that they were.
When
we
we bought the
sorry, go
house,
ahead.
it was, you should understand, it was raining in every room. So,
Good, it was concrete, huh?
no, it's because it was a flat roof.
Yes, it did rather give the lie to the advertising.
So you've since renovated
Yes.
the
Yes.
house.
Almost finished.
Almost finished. Are you, presumably you've hired a contractor to do the work, or are you doing some of the work yourself?
No, we've done
We've done almost all of it
pretty much all of
ourselves.
it
Oh,
ourselves.
okay. Yep, congratulations, very good. So then you take particular care in executing every detail, just so. Very good. Any questions for the chicks? Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. So now I'm confused. J.E. Hines was quoted as saying its life is practically indefinite, and you're saying it was raining in every room. So I was just trying to.
That was just the roof.
Yeah.
The rest of the house.
No, I
was
just find
fine.
that I can't help but be amused by the old advertisement and intrigued and just it's fascinating how how they promoted the construction. And we all know that no matter what you build, if you don't maintain it, it's going to have issues. But
Particularly flat roofs.
yeah,
Yes, if you've been to
and I know
see
this is the
Frank
time
Lloyd
to.
Wright houses, which had flat roofs, they're also raining in every room.
We thank you for taking care of such a jewel.
Yeah. Other comments and questions for the applicant? That means we love it. That's what that means. So thank you for
Okay,
coming
well,
in.
thank
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And now we have some public testimony from the one and only Karen Burdett of Montgomery Preservation. It's
Enjoying being on this side. I'm Karen Burdett. I am the president of Montgomery Preservation, Inc., and I am here to basically, to keep it short, but we submitted a letter of testimony written by our Vice President, Mark Edwards, who could not be here tonight, and Montgomery Preservation, Inc. is fully in support of this nomination to the locational atlas and to the master plan. And we encourage the HPC to vote unanimously for this nomination. This is an amazing house. Totally personally delighted to see it come forward. I've always been a big fan of this house and knew nothing about it. And also, I do appreciate the work that the staff did in research in finding out who the architect was and getting some of that information down as well, and all of that promotional literature. By coincidence, I've spent a lot of hours in the last couple of weeks looking at Montgomery County's development in the post-war period in the 1950s, when the growth of housing was explosive, to say the least, and nothing matches this house or the Robert Llewellyn Wright house. Obviously, they're unique. So I won't belabor the point, but I'm so happy to be here to give MPI support. And I also know that Art Deco Society of Washington submitted testimony, and they could not be here tonight to testify, but they are also delighted that this is coming forward and are very happy to support it.
And NPI is happy to give any help to the applicants. And anything they want to do, we will help them with. And in particular, since I just did the Robert Llewellyn Wright tax credit application, painfully, I can help them with theirs when they get designated. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this speaker? Other than we're very happy to have you before us. What is our course of action? Do we need to vote on, make a motion? And
We do, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do need a motion that addresses the 3 items on the screen in front of you.
would any commissioner care to make a motion? Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. I make the motion that the commission find that the Snow House meets the designation criteria as outlined in Chapter 24A of the County Code, and that we recommend to the planning board that they add the subject site in the locational atlas and index of historic sites. And we also recommend that the planning board request that the county council approve an amendment to the master plan for historic preservation to designate the Snow House as a master plan historic site.
Do I have a second on that motion?
This is Commissioner Prather. I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. So we will request that this be designated. Thank you. So, moving on, thank you. We have tax credits, Group 5.
All right, this is Laura DePasquale with the staff. Today, we're happy to present Group 5 of the 2025 calendar year historic preservation tax credits. Staff has determined there are 11 applications in Group 5 consisting of $669,489.88 in eligible expenditures for owners of properties designated on the master plan for historic preservation. Summary sheets were included in your board book. And staff recommends that the HPC direct staff to transmit Group 5 of the 2025 historic preservation tax credits to the Department of Finance as laid out in the previously mentioned summary sheets.
Anybody have questions about that? If not, anybody wish to make a motion? Commissioner Galway, thank you.
This is Commissioner Galway. I make a motion that we approve and submit the Group 5 2025 tax credits to the Department of Finance for their approval and payment.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Kaplan, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. Moving forward to the minutes, we have the minutes of June 10th, and actually, we have the minutes of the 24th as well as the 10th, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chair.
And we'll start with the 10th. Has anybody read the June 10th?
Yes, this is Commissioner Prather. I read the minutes from the June 10th Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and I recommend that the minutes be accepted as documented.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that motion? It's Commissioner Haynes. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The June 10th minutes are approved. June 24th meeting minutes. Has anybody read the minutes and wish to make a motion?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I read the June 24th minutes, and they looked accurate to my eye, so I would move that we approve the minutes as shown.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Yes, this is Commissioner Prather. I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the June 24th meeting minutes are approved. Moving on, do we have any commission items to speak of? It appears not. Any staff items?
No staff items, Mr. Chair.
And with that, I adjourn this meeting. Good night.